it. That is entirely my fault. Sorry, guys. Wait, it says I'm live. Okay, I think we are. We are. I don't know. I'm going to keep an eye and make
Can you
sure.
send me that link, Declan?
I can. Yeah. Sorry.
Thanks.
What's the best way to
This has
send it to
been
you?
great fun watching Declan be coached through how to stream something on YouTube. And
Watch me.
it's not in the genes.
No, it's like just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So there's do. I see everybody else do this online and they make it look piss easy.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you though, from having done a bunch of these now throughout the pandemic, I don't think it is. I think everyone maybe makes it look easy, but I did a whole store thing where we were 50 minutes in before they realized there was no audio.
Was that the other day? I thought you were streaming on something on Facebook or?
Yeah, I've done about a half dozen of them, so it was about a week or two ago.
Oh, geez.
It was pretty great. It was pretty great.
All these.
Sorry, I didn't.
Wait, to what to be coffee?
But okay, but what I was saying before was it was your creator and stuff that that's how I found you. You were doing Murder Book as a webcomic at the time, I think. But since then, you've how many crime books have you done since? There's like The Last Contract, The Violent,
Murder
Book.
Just 3, not as many as I'd like. I guess you could count Sons of Anarchy. I wrote Sons of Anarchy, and that's crime. We'll count that. I'm just looking at my shelf over here. I think really that's it for crime. Like our Punisher versus Barracuda thing is pretty crime heavy.
Now you're just a superhero guy because you have done way more superhero stuff than anything else.
Yeah, although like I was saying earlier, I'm doing a lot of creator-owned stuff right now because of the pandemic, and always sort of talking about that. If I had more time to get back to creator-owned stuff, and now all I have is time, so I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to let it pass. I'm trying to use it smartly. So, I just started writing the new arc of the Violent, so I'm back on.
Yeah, I think
on that grind.
It's the weird thing with the pandemic is I found like if I had, all of a sudden for the first time in ages I had nothing to work on, and this book was delayed, so I didn't really know what to do with myself, and I'll just go mad. Sure, Elaine will tell you I was visiting her during a few months ago, and she lives in this like lovely island, and I I just wanted. I was just finding stuff to do the whole time, like emails or stuff I wanted to work on my downtime, even though I was supposed to be on holiday. I just go nuts if I don't have something to tinker with.
Yeah, I think I had to when the pandemic started. I had God, about 4 weeks where I couldn't work on anything. But we also had we had a plumbing issue, which I complained to you about before. But we had like this unexpected huge housing expense that hit right at the same time that work started to go pencils down. So I was like in a real depressive state for four weeks, not being able to work. Just kind of like, I don't know if you get this where you're like afraid of like what does this mean for the industry at the end. But then I realized like I've got time now and I gotta really start using it.
Yeah, I think I
didn't want to be a bummer.
No, not at all. I had 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks of so I keep getting distracted. There's people in the complex opposite my window, and there's all these women sunbathing. So it's like it's like really moody, dark, depressing background I have here. But like outside is glorious, beautiful people sunbathing, and it's just so. It's why am I looking at this screen? But it's just kind of finding a way staying occupied, especially when you look online and everybody's just kind of so upset and worried about. Everybody's in the same boat, but it kind of, I don't know, in a weird way, it's kind of, I don't know, it seems to force people to kind of reevaluate what they want to be doing, I guess.
Yeah, I think it just, like I said, for me, it's really a lot of just sort of working on all those projects that I've been sort of threatening to work on for years. So like, I've got a screenplay that I've been tooling around with for 2 years that I'm tooling around with a bit more heavily now. So I'm actually writing and working with a producer friend. I don't know if I talked to you about this already, but I'm working with a producer friend. We're developing a TV series pitch.
No,
which is
right.
something I never would have had time for.
Yeah.
So at least I'm not. I know these things. It's tough to get them off the ground, but at least I'm going to have the experience at the end of it, and it's something I've always wanted to sort of try my hand at.
Oh, fair play, man. I was going to say, but what is it about the crime stuff that you liked? Well, like or liked? I guess would it be safe to say one of the things you're working on now is a little crimey?
Well, yeah, actually, the TV show pitch is straight up crime. I'm back working on the violent, which has just been like it was actually starting back on the violent. That was sort of the boost that I needed to, like it just seemed to energize me, right? And it just seemed to feed me. Um, I don't know what it is. My dad was a cop growing up,
Is that is
and
that
so
is that as cool as it sounds? I'm imagining it isn't.
no, no, not at all. It just means that my dad is used to dealing with people who are lying to him all day. So he comes home and is convinced that anything I say is bullshit. Um,
Was it, or were you?
Half the time it was, but it's still like 30 years later he'll bring up something I did when I was fairly young, and he still to this day doesn't believe like that. He doesn't believe the truth of it. He believes what his cop intuition was telling him was the truth of it. But yeah, it I told the story the other day, but I'll tell it again because it sort of encapsulates what he was like as a dad. In that one year for Christmas, not Christmas, sorry, Halloween, we used to get a lot of kids in the neighborhood, and my parents had bought lots of candy, and in there they had Reese's peanut butter cups, which were my favorite at the time. And he said, "Don't eat these until after Halloween." We were forbade from eating them, so of course, I would eat some when they weren't looking. And one night he wakes me like 12, 1 in the morning. He's
Mhm.
like, "Ed, come downstairs, come downstairs." He's like, "You're not gonna believe this. Somebody broke into the house." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Someone broke in." He's like, and he opens the kitchen garbage, and there's a Reese's peanut butter cup wrapper in there. And he's like, "Somebody broke in the house and they ate Reese's peanut butter cups." I'm like, "Oh my God." He's like, "I know you guys wouldn't do it because I told you not to." And, and I'm like, "Okay, cool." I'm like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" He's like, "Well, the police are already on their way." He's like, "What I need to do is I actually need to take fingerprints from everyone in the house to make, just so they can
Yeah,
eliminate."
exactly. Yeah.
He took a pair of tweezers and he took the Reese's peanut butter cup thing out of the garbage, and he brought it over to the kitchen table, and he took one of my mom's blush brushes,
Mm.
and my dad was a smoker, so we dab it in ash from his ashtray, and he dusts it, and he's like, "Oh, I got a really good print. I got a really good print." And then I had a stamp kit that he took out, and he was like fingerprinting me. And while he's doing it, I'm like, "What happens if our fingerprints are on there? Like, what if we touch them?" He's like, "Well, if I call the police and we file a false complaint, it turns out someone in the house did it, then that person will end up having to go to jail." And
That's
like, I'm like,
amazing.
I'm 10. I'm literally 10 years old, and I'm like freaking out. And so, of course, admitted to it, and he's like, "Yeah, I know. You're grounded for a week. Go to bed." But like that sort of thing. Like, so he not only did he not trust, sometimes he was like so elaborate in trying to get us to admit to things that we'd done. But I was a bit of a juvenile delinquent growing up. I'd sort of, I think a lot of cop children have like preacher kid syndrome.
Mm.
You're rebelling against
Sure.
your parents, sort of the ultimate authority. So I was when I was younger, I was really bad for getting into fights and um, stealing and all sorts of like sort of little petty crime. I mellowed out as soon as I was about 15, 16. I really mellowed out, but before that it was sort of bonkers with it. So but I always had sort of a fascination with crime. I wanted to be a cop for a long time when I was younger. Both my brother and I did. Neither of us became cops, but so I think that's sort of where the fascination started. And then
Mm.
later on in life, I discovered, Elmore Leonard and Charles Wilford and um, Richard Stark and Jim Thompson and those sort of writers, and just sort of became fascinated with the genre as a whole. Uh,
I
and
was
just
actually kind of
sort
the opposite. I was like a good boy my whole life. Like I didn't do anything wrong. I only did what I was told, and I only kind of rebelled in like my last year of leaving cert, which is like the last year of high school. Um, and my my rebellious thing was like uh, like me and Elaine, our parents aren't together, and my rebellious nature was like, well, someday I'm going to get married. See how you like that? Conforming was my rebellion. But
Wow.
and also my granddad was a sergeant in the police force here. He was a guard, and I'm not sure if I ever told Elaine this, but like if when I was a kid, I thought of being a guard when I was a kid. All right, probably I know it was the goody two shoes in me or whatever it was. Um, and if people used to ask me if I couldn't draw, what would I want to do? And I think that was. Did you hear that, Lane?
I thought that was a joke if I ever did hear it.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Like,
Oh my God.
I think like very, very, very young. I would have thought like, yeah, because of like I would have respected our granddad a lot. And yeah, I was just such a straight laced like lame-o.
Yeah, our mum brought home an application to join the police force to me when I was like being grounded over something.
All
No,
right,
I wasn't grounded because I was
that
old enough, but it was something I'd done wasn't great anyway.
the scary
That
straight.
was like punishment to me.
And now look how we turned out. But
Yeah.
what was
That
it?
was I was threatened with a military academy. That was
Oh
my
yeah.
dad's.
That is
He was,
scary.
he was in the Navy before he was a cop, and he always like my parents split when I was 8. But my dad would be over a lot, but he always thought military academy is what I needed. Which weirdly, like even though I was like a scrapper and getting into all sorts of trouble, I was like a straight A student.
Oh right, okay.
Who was like reading years beyond where I should have been reading. And then I got lazy in high school, and I was resting on those laurels. But yeah, military academy was always a big threat.
Yeah, I was somewhat similar. I was like good in school, and I think in the last years, I was just like, I just want to do art. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if I was my own parent, I'd be like, you idiots.
Yeah, I remember in high school that I had that one moment with a teacher where they pulled me aside and they're like, "Listen, we know you're better than your grades. Like, why?" And I was just kind of like lazy about it. And I was making comics in high school, like drawing and writing my own stuff. But like just to prove to them, I remember one semester I was just like, I got on honors list, and I went and talked to that same teacher. I'm like, "See, I can do it if I wanted to. I just
Oh man,
not terribly interested."
you were a shit.
I was.
Oh dear. Well, we're nearly time's wrapped up. I just want to ask if there's any crime books that you like. What would you be most proud of out of all the stuff the crime stuff you've worked on?
Man, that's tough to say. I would say like it's hard for me to kind of separate Murder Book and The Violent, because The Violent was initially supposed to be a Murder Book ongoing. We had changed it from Murder Book to The Violent because it was like kind of like a fresh start that Adam and I were doing something together, so it wasn't like continuing something I'd done, but also because Dark Horse had already released the Murder Book collection and we were doing Violent over at Image, so we couldn't use the title at 2 different publishers. I would say like I don't know, maybe say The Violent. I love Murder Book, and they're pretty much on par, but I think the one thing, especially now that I'm back writing The Violent, and people aren't going to see anything I've written probably for a year, but we're telling, like, even though we're hoping for 5 arcs, five issue arcs, so we've already done 1, so 4 more, and each story will be sort of disconnected with a little bit of connective tissue between them, but sort of stand on their own. But there's a much larger story that we're telling across all 5 volumes that is sort of deeply personal to me, and I think it's just got a lot of
Well,
it's just a thing I've wanted to do
they're
for
both
years.
different formats. Like Murder Book are short story anthologies,
Yeah.
which are great and fun, but it's not the same as like sitting with characters as their lives fall apart. It's just not as compelling,
Exactly, but even like in The Violent, each 5 issue arc is different, some different characters. Like the first arc, is about a couple ex-drug addicts. The second arc that we're working on right now is actually about the cop from the first.
Oh, cool.
Who, as a 13-year-old, it's set in 1986, so it's set in the past. But the whole thing is it's going to be about like sort of patterns and cycles of violence and poverty through families, through generations, that we'll be telling through all 5 issues, 5 arcs. And the plan is that for anyone who's read the first arc, the couple has a daughter who will actually be the protagonist of the 5th issue, or the 5th arc, sorry, when she's about 13, 14.
Man, you have this all figured out.
Yeah. It's ambitious. It's kind of, crime's a tough sell, and you probably know.
Yeah. It's often it's something I've been talking to like Irish media here, which is a little frustrating. Is like film, TV, and novels. Crime is huge in Ireland, but like people just aren't used to reading graphic novels here. So this, it's Bog Bodies and Savage Town before that was a slight attempt at maybe trying to make something that people here would be more likely to actually read than superheroes.
Right.
It's just in a format they're not used to, and I haven't quite figured it out yet. But hopefully, this book will help. But because I'd like Irish people to read more comics, and I'd like Americans to read more Irish stories.
Sure.
There's like I feel like there's a middle ground there somewhere. That but like it's there for something that's a very popular media genre outside of comics. It's a hard sell inside comics.
Yeah, it's funny because I think you and I have similar that, like with the violence, I'm really trying to get people to see Canada as a place where there is like some real shitty stuff going on.
Yeah, they're not all nice.
Yeah, we're not nice. It's not some sort of paradise where we all live in igloos with free healthcare. It's there's a lot of nasty stuff going on. So anyway, but yeah, the violence. If people want to check it out, that's the one I would sort of push.
It's great. It's Adam Gorham, and who colored it?
Mike Garland.
Oh, right, Mike Garland. Yeah, that was lovely. And Tom Muller did the design for it. That was a brilliant book, man. I loved it.
Thanks. Well, hopefully you'll like the second one as much.
We have a lot of praise for the violent here in the comments on YouTube as well.
Oh, really?
So
awesome.
Really excited for more.
Excellent.
Perfect. Love to hear that.
Oh, we'll get to it, Ed. Come on.
All right. I'm actually literally working on it right now.
All right. Well, go finish it. So, and yeah, thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you. Okay, so Declan, you ready for guest number 2?
I am. If Ed, you're still on.
I'm leaving.
Get out of here.
Take your time.
Okay, one down. That wasn't too bad. It was a bit rocky at first. Not because of Ed.
It's just you and the internet, isn't it? So here we are anyway.
A little bit, yeah. But yeah. So people are commenting in the comments, are they? Nice one.
Yeah.
Grand.
Good.
I would say if Gavin's coming in a second, and he's coming in for a half hour, and he's gonna do a sketch for while we're talking to everybody else after him.
Okay.
And I'll have him come back at the end, and if there's like a really good question, like just try and make a note of it, because we'll pick whoever did the best question, and we can send him or her the sketch. But,
excellent. Okay, cool.
But
Gav should be here.
Oh, grand. Just give some background. So Gavin drew Bog Bodies, and I met him. I was teaching a storytelling class in Dublin, and like he showed up. He came up to me. He didn't say a word to me the whole time until the very last the class, and he just showed me these brilliant comics. Hi, Gav. How's it going?
Hey.
All right.
Hello.
Hey, Elaine. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, no problem at all.
We got everyone at a good time when they're not allowed to leave their houses. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, also everyone's getting used to saying "nice to meet you" when they haven't met. Like before, you go, "Oh, nice to meet you" on the internet, but no one has that disclaimer anymore.
Yeah, no, this is it. You know, this is
life now.
Yeah. We'll have to learn to like do high fives over the internet. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Gav. We just had Ed on. Actually, it's something we meant to talk about, mention at some stage. But me and Ed have a weird connection in that he knows Philip Barrett. From when Phil lived in Canada, him and Ed knew each other from the comic scene there. So when I told Ed, who I've known for years now in comics, that I was working with Phil, I didn't expect him to know who Phil Barrett was. He was like, "Oh yeah, I know Phil." It's like, how would you know Phil? But yeah, how are you keeping anyway? You working away and stuff?
Yeah, grand. Yeah, I'm just working on a bunch of personal stuff at the minute. You know, personal projects like
Yeah, that one you posted last week, was it? Or the week before? That
The Strand one.
yeah, that was lovely, man.
Oh, thanks so much. Cheers. Yeah. Yeah, just working on stuff like that, like, I kind of want to do some like long form stuff and try and get some book pitches done this year, But I haven't actually like kind of done many comics since finishing up Bog Bodies,
Yeah.
Just been doing covers mainly,
But it's been nice to just kind of. I mean, I'm doing it myself. I did a thing that went online last week, and I'm working on another thing now. But it's nice to just kind of have an idea, write a story, and put it out there.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Like I'm not too sure what like I'm doing at the minute. I'm working on a 25-page thing.
Mhm.
And I have that penciled, and I'm going to start inking it soon. I'm not too sure what to do with it. Like, I might just don't know if I just put it up online or because even like printing zines now, it's just something I would have done in the past. Like I probably would have printed this to sell at shows or something. But
Yeah, but that's not a thing
yeah,
anymore.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Like
So
it's weird. Because I had lots of plans to do other kind of promotional stuff. With Bog Bodies, and like I was looking into maybe a cinema ad or a billboard or something, and you're like, nobody's in those places or outside.
yeah,
and
exactly.
and the criticism I would have before is like, if you're always just promoting online, like it only goes so far. But now everything is online now.
Yeah,
It's all kind of moving there, so it's weird. Yeah, so in a weird way, you can do smaller stuff and get it out to an audience, but it's a small audience, just like doing a zine is a small audience.
yeah, no, exactly. But I think I can't remember who it was. Like, I was listening to something the last day, and it was like that this may be just a new sort of landscape for media. Is that you're not really going to reach many mass audiences anymore. You're going to have niche audiences. You know what I mean? Like so.
Well,
So
things been kind of going that. I mean, you're like at least 10 years younger than me, aren't you? What age are you again?
I'll be 31 in August.
Okay, so okay, I'm 38. But I remember, I think I was in my I went to, like, a few years ago. I went to the nightclub I used to go to when I was like 17, 18, and when I went there as a kid, it was all just beardy metalers and a couple of goth girls, and
Mm,
you'd just be talking about Scorsese movies like that. That was alternate.
sure, yeah,
But now it's like, it's not just people who are into anime. It's into like specifically 1980s anime made in a specific country. Like
yeah, yeah,
all
yeah,
the different kind of niche fandoms have, in a way, become more mainstream. But then as a result, more niches are within the niches, and it gets like, you got to wonder how insular it's getting too. Because that's the thing is, you can't just be making something for a very specific audience. Not that you need
mm,
to, not that you need to be like all PT Barnum about it. Like, but
sure,
you
yeah,
you want you want people to read a story.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't want it to just be one type of person reading it.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like you definitely want to hit like a diverse audience as well. Like but yeah, it's just like, but I don't know. I think like even at the best of times, the kind of stuff I made would have been quite niche. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know. I think it's kind of just the reality, the kind of thing, the kind of work that I want to make. Is that it probably does a quite a limited audience to it. Like which which kind of sucks.
Mm. Well, I mean,
But
but I mean, all the more reason to be doing things in different, like I said, the short form, zines, graphic
yeah, yeah.
novels. Like, I mean, it's probably a good thing to be trying to hit as many different places as you can. I mean,
No, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
I work in mainstream comics, but like mainstream comics is still a weird. Like, sure, look what happened with the direct market and the book.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's still it's a niche of its own kind. It's mainstream yet also not, and yet that's a weird one. But anyway, how are you feeling about the book now? I
Yeah, like
it's done
yeah.
now. It's finally out there.
Well, look, I mean, I think you're asking me that whenever we got our comp copies, like I it definitely feels weird because you kind of you see all the. For me, I just see like all the mistakes, and like what was I on that day,
Specifically, what mistakes, Gavin? Would you like to point them out in front of everybody?
I think there is like a hand in there with like 6 fingers, stuff like that. I suppose it's like Jesus, how did I miss that?
Yeah, but I think I was saying to you before though that like because you did bags before this, and there's something to be said for like drawing 20 pages every month for a few months. It knocks the shit out of you pretty much, like drawing wise, like in a good way. Like it forces you to cut all the superficial stuff and get to the core of what you're trying to do, and I've your drawing kind of levels up in a weird way because you're just with the zines, like imagine how much time you would have spent on say an 8-page zine. Because even I did a 4-page story the other week, and I spent 2 weeks on it. There was no need for me to spend 2 weeks. It should have just been 4 days. Bam, done. But you end up kind of now and then. Maybe it's a good thing to do, but there's something to be said for regularly working.
Yeah. I think the difference, so like I mean the kind of the difference between like zines and doing like a graphic novel is there's also like a lot of you're more than likely going to be collaborating, and when you're doing a zine, you're writing it, you're drawing it, you're editing it all yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a 4-page thing ends up taking way longer than it would normally take you to draw 4 pages for Marvel or something. But yeah, like it's a long process, like but definitely like in terms of just getting better and making comics, like nothing beats just like a 4 or 5 month stretch, drawn like a page or two a day,
Yeah. Is there any? I know you said there are bits of the book that like are less than perfect. Is there any stuff that you're without getting into spoilers or anything? But is there any stuff that you're particularly happy with? Like I know it's uncomfortable for me to ask an Irishman to compliment themselves, but if you'd indulge me,
the worst.
Yeah.
Forbidden. Don't say a word.
Deny.
It's like a fairy curse,
Yeah.
I think actually, I think there's bits of the landscape I really like. There's bits where I really felt like I kind of nailed the vibe of the mountains. I don't know, there's just a particular kind of eeriness and a kind of, I suppose, the bogginess. Or there's kind of like a turfy texture, that I feel like I managed to get across. Like, so I'm pretty happy with that. Like, and I actually like, I mean, not to get into spoilers, but the last page, put a lot of that's down to Rebecca's coloring as well. Like, I think she did such a great job.
Yeah, I should mention Rebecca because she couldn't do the stream, but I'd seen a lot of her work. She did an apprenticeship here with Geordie, who's a colorist. So her and another girl, Dervla, were basically kind of I wouldn't say they were apprentice. She was doing an apprenticeship with them, and so I saw her really start out and just get better and better over time. But she's doing a lot of stuff at Boom and Dynamite. But I remember asking her about Bog Bodies a while ago because I didn't initially think of her because that's not the aesthetic she normally goes for, and I thought it'd be interesting to see, because I mean the whole book could have just been dull and dark, which is what I was thinking of originally, but it's also not the most visually interesting. So, it's always good because I remember when I was sending people pages that you had drawn, everyone was like, "You don't need to color this." I was like, well, I've already paid someone to color it, so that's what's happening. But anybody who's seen the pages colored were like, oh, okay, yeah.
This is actually for sure,
which is the best compliment I think you can get, and also Rebecca can get too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it is nice having the black and white, and particularly for like if it's a zine or whatever, or an indie book, but like but once you get the colors back, like you can see how much the work is elevated. It just brings a whole other dimension to it. Like
Well, I mean, if the colorist is good, if the colorist is bad, it can make it kind of more monotonous and kind of dull. But
Sure,
it's
yeah.
I think it was the whole thing with the book, with the one environment, with the limited like action and whatnot, is knowing when to kind of hit those moments, and she did them so well.
Yeah,
So your favorite things are the colors. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh, you got out of it well. Fair play.
You guys missed a trick here. I'm just getting some comments through on YouTube.
Okay.
Someone has just commented boogie bodies, which I think you could definitely go with.
It's a good see. I have a problem where I've typed it out. It's been big bodies, big
Oh,
biddies. I like
Big biddies.
yeah.
Classic.
I'm thinking big biddies because definitely a book in that.
Yeah, there is. Can I just go through a couple more
Yeah, please.
questions on YouTube? Yeah. With Deck working in mainstream and being pretty well known, did Gav feel any major pressure to perform, or was it rather relaxed when him and Deck discussed the book initially?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think
You don't have to just be nice to Declan now because of his trust me, I've
no, but I mean,
yeah.
No, look, I mean, I think that because of the script, because you're an artist as well, like, you know, that I felt like you knew how to like, write. And it's hard. It's kind of hard to explain, but like sometimes you get scripts that are kind of written in this kind of prose
Sure.
way. You know, it's like you have to do like a lot of interpretation in terms of like just the basics in terms of like blocking and figuring out where the characters are and stuff, and whereas the writer hasn't really taken into consideration how the thing will flow visually.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten scripts where you're reading it and you're like you're doing mental gymnastics in your head, going, how, even just trying to find this necessary information. You know, sometimes there's scripts where it's just writing the thing so much you're like, what am I supposed to draw here? You know.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I mean, if I was to criticize myself, I'm probably a little too lean. Whereas I think sometimes I write something and I know what it's like in my head, but I don't write it out, which in a way leaves things more open for you. But it also, like, it's better for you to have the information and choose to ignore it. So I think I could probably be a bit better in that regard. But
Yeah.
but I mean, I think a lot of it goes down to, like, you know, I realize if I was ever going to write and draw a book, it should have been this one because there's fuck all backgrounds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Isn't this looking over? Because it's one thing I learned is I love drawing landscapes and stuff. I mean, I did it on the cover. I love drawing that kind of stuff. And I loved writing it because I like the idea of what you were going to do was interesting. But now I realize, like, it would just been so much more easier. But
Yeah.
but I think what was great about that is because there's, like, it's minimal backgrounds and whatnot. It forces you to kind of look at the faces more, and I think that's where, like, I just think you're a better cartoonist than I am, which is why your character designs I liked so much. They were pushed like 40% further than what I would have done. I felt like mine might have been a little bit more generic, but yours were like, Neve looks like a girl from Tala. You know, I think I was telling you before, I might have drawn like a prettier girl because I'm used to drawing nicer things in superhero comics and whatnot. And that's not because, I think that's what it should look like, just because you kind of develop a visual shorthand sometimes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
But to answer the question specifically, I would say that, like, I'm, I knew I couldn't draw it anyway because I didn't have time. And having worked with Phil on Savage Town, I knew I would like the idea of, like, giving a spotlight to an Irish artist. Plus, I'd met you and loved your stuff and thought, oh, I'd love to see him do something in a bigger platform. So, like, you have this and you have this, and it was just seemed like such a good opportunity. But I mean, as regards pressure, I mean, I can't.
No, like, I mean, yeah, no, like, it felt like, like, it felt more like you were taking me under your wing than I was.
You don't want to go down there.
Yeah, rather than kind of like living in your shadow or anything, you know what I mean? Like, it felt like, I don't know, it felt like, that's yeah, exactly. The support was there, like, rather than, like, I can't draw as good as Deck or whatever. I think,
Hey, Who
I
can?
wasn't.
Who can? You know.
That's the thing. You know, I wasn't trying to. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So there wasn't really any. You know, it's like, oh, I have to make this look like a Declan Shelby book or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, no, and I think not that you know, I don't think you would have wanted me to try and like
No. But
ape your style or anything
I
like
do
that.
think
You know?
weirdly, because the last arc of Injection I did was kind of set out in the countryside a little, and I kind of feel there's a slight aesthetic. I mean, from the cover I did to the compositions in the book that you did, I don't know. There's a nice. I know a lot of the reviews I've seen have kind of made a point of like commenting on the mood of like there's a nice aesthetic quality which is hard to kind of you don't write that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's purely down to what you put down on the page and how it's interpreted. I mean, and so much of that is you. I think I would hope that maybe I kind of was able to start the baton a little by doing the cover at first.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
which is the most art directly I would have wanted. I didn't want to be telling you how to draw anything. But the inner asshole in me was like likes to have my say, I guess. But that's what I like about it so much. Even though I did the cover and you did the insides, it feels like the same book. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think that's you know, I think we were just kind of on the same page as far as like the mood we wanted to make. You know what I mean? And you know, there's like kind of films and stuff that we mentioned before starting it. Like you know, and it was just like I think we were just gonna.
Yeah, I mean, we only actually met once to talk about it, which is weird.
Yeah.
So that's enough, says Gav.
Yeah, sure enough. But was there anything else?
Definitely.
Were there other? I did see there were like 10 minutes left today. And is there more questions, or I don't know?
Yeah, a couple just on the same topic actually. This man asks, does Mr. Fullerton find it easier to do art for a writer who's an artist or a writer who only writes, or is there a difference? I think you somewhat answered that already, but do you generally prefer one or the other?
Sorry, Elaine, what was the question again?
Does Mr. Fullerton find it easier to do art for a writer who is an artist or a writer who only writes?
Yeah. And I think, like I said before, like I think, like you know,
have you done much with anyone who just writes?
No, not really. Like I mean, like most of that work would have been storyboarding work, you know. So from that perspective, like it's definitely like Bog Bodies is definitely the easiest to do visually. Like I mean, like I said, I think we just you know we had the same, or you have like you think about things that the writers just tend not to think about, you know. And it's kind of hard to explain to people that don't if people haven't drawn comics, you know, for scripts that other people have written or anything. But it's just like it's things like you'll often get in scripts, you know, they'll have a character standing at one end of a room, you know, maybe having a conversation and say, oh, and then the character like you know smashes a button or busts through the window or something, you know. And it's like, well, how did that character get from here to here? You know, you kind of have to like explain, you know.
Yeah, it wrecks my head.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of a bad example, but you know what I mean? Like it's like sort of like.
I think there's definitely annoying things that I've experienced from scripts that I'm like, I hate that. I will never do that to somebody else. But like, I remember one of them was like, draw a scene in a car, and then I did half of Savage Town was that, and a chunk of Bog Bodies too. Someone's making fun of me, going, "It's interesting. I only ever see cars in the books you write, not the ones you draw." Yeah, I mean, similarly, I mean, I've done both. I've well, a lot of the guys I've worked with, Jeff Parker, Brian Wood, who else was a writer artist? I'm blanking right now, but Warren isn't, but his scripts are kind of different. But I was lucky enough to work with guys like Jeff, who I remember when I was drawing Thunderbolts, there was like 12 characters in one issue, which was nearly impossible to draw. But he'd always the backgrounds would always be in a cavern or in a desert. Or you know, like at the time, I didn't realize he was saving my ass because he knew I'd be spending so much time drawing different characters interacting, which is really really tough. But I didn't need to worry about like a city's background or something ridiculously complex. So
sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't learn that the hard way. Thankfully, like I saw what he was doing. I was like, oh, that's good. I'm It's good to
Yeah,
remember that.
yeah.
So like I'm sure the stuff in the cars were, because I've drawn it before, it's hard to figure out. But like I didn't feel too bad because you had such open skies otherwise. So you know.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's kind of the challenge with comics, you know, is finding those workarounds, you know, and that if you know, if you were kind of drawing two characters talking with a kind of cityscapes background, like I'd probably find some sort of, you know, artistic uh workaround, you know what I mean, where
Sure.
it's, you know, they're in like a shadow or something, you know, because it's just not because oftentimes it doesn't even look good, you know what I mean, or it kind of messes up the
Yeah, it's kind of like they're trying to collage something together. There's all these different objects, and you're trying to move them around to make them work. Whereas I
yeah
think what I try to is like have a flow, for lack of a better
yeah
term. I think flow is kind of what I'm going, especially with the pacing as well. You know.
yeah for sure,
Oh.
yeah
So was
yeah,
there any more? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to run out of time if
Oh,
I can
no,
help
yeah, and I don't know how to butt in politely.
it.
Was Bog Bodies pitched as an OGN or a mini series? From looking at those 3 exhibit pieces in the back matter, they would have made some tasty covers or chapter breaks.
It's a good point. I asked Gavin to do those just for promotional purposes because I figured the more images, the better. They're lovely. You know the ones that me and Gavin the
oh yeah
the car and stuff.
yeah
Yeah, no, it was actually. I'm sure I told you this, Gavin. I originally came up with this as an excuse to give Owen Marin something to draw after I'd done an apprenticeship. He'd done an apprenticeship with me, so I wanted to do a one shot to give him something to do once he finished. And then once I thought of it, I was like, actually, I wonder if publishers would do one shots anymore because it doesn't tend to happen. So because I knew it wasn't going to be a big story. I knew it with a finite ending. So then I actually sent it to DC Comics, and they suggested it be a graphic novel. I was like, oh, okay, sure. Then Image announced Savage Town when that was announced, and DC passed. And they were like, "Oh, you're already doing it with," even though it's a very, very, very different book. So I kind of just put it away for a while, and then we'd been talking for on and off at conventions, and I know what it was. I was just convinced you wouldn't want to do it, so I was always I was always tiptoeing around you. It's like, you know, I think I remember we were having dinner in Chicago or something, and I think I was like, you know, if you're interested, like at all, and you were like, oh yeah, cool. I was like, no, you don't have to do it. Like I don't know why I was so like dancing around it so much, but it felt like a good idea that I wanted to do, you know, and I don't mean to be insulting saying it was originally for somebody else. I mean, because from talking from the chat that we had in person, the plot was the same, but the story was different. If that makes sense. Like we were talking, I think we were talking about maybe it was even you who brought up the church. I think it was actually, like those kind of themes coming into it. Like, I don't think they would have happened without us kind of talking it over.
Sure, yeah. It could have been definitely a different story for sure.
But to answer the question specifically again, it was always planned to be a graphic novel. I think maybe we could have done it as a mini series, but I think the reason why there aren't any flashbacks or anything like that is because we wanted to keep the characters in the environment. And I think had we stopped every 20 pages for a month, we might have lost that. I mean, again, it's a hard thing to argue because I don't really know the answer to it. But I do feel that a break every quarter through that story wouldn't have felt as you wouldn't be stuck in the landscape with the characters, like.
No, for sure. And for me, like, you know, the graphic novel format is, you know, preferred format. Like, you know, I just don't think it would really make much sense for this to be broken up. Like, like I said, it kind of affects the pacing and all as well. Like, you know, the whole story. Yeah, you know, I'm glad it's in the format that it is. You know.
Yeah, same here. Is there any more, Elaine?
Yeah, so I have 2 more.
Okay. We have to bring in another special guest. I'm going to get rid of you, Gavin, enough for you. But I will say
Um,
if there's a question, and if you can try keep note, Elaine, of like a question you think is particularly good.
Yeah.
And Gavin, do you know what you're going to do a sketch of?
I'm still kind of thumbnailing here. I mean, I had one idea, but I've kind of given up on that. But I will have something at the end.
Okay, well, and we'll send that to whoever does the best question, and I'll leave it up to you,
Sure.
Elaine, so that nobody gives me crap.
They will anyway.
Yeah, they will.
There you go.
But
yeah, just how much back and forth was there after the script was delivered? Was the entire script complete before Gavin started, or were there adjustments made as the art came back?
I'll answer that quick as I can. It was very much not in one go. I think the plan was that I write the whole thing, and then Gavin can gaze out the window and think of inspiration and work on it as he felt. But I was so busy on various things that I got a chapter, which was I wrote it in 4 chapters basically. So I sent him the first chapter. He started drawing it, and then I'd write the next chapter in time for when he finished the first one, which arguably wasn't the best way to work because it was a bit more stress and a bit more there might have been more stress than necessary. But as a result, I started seeing Gavin's pages come in, and it made it more fun for me to write. Like when he drew Jerry, that character, like he looks like such a nutcase, which I hadn't been expecting, which changed how I wrote him. It made him a worse person. And same what happened with Savage Towns. I really like that process of, which probably isn't fair on the artist, but who cares about artists, right? But it made it the work informed the writing a bit more, which is what I liked about it. So, but I think I got everything to you in time, Gavin, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
you're waiting 1 week, maybe.
Yeah, no, it was fairly what's the word? I don't know. It was just yeah, like I mean, it was kind of on schedule. We had a pretty good, like I think we had, like Heather had a good made like a great schedule, and as far as I know, we stuck to it. So
yeah, Heather's coming in later, and like she was a big part of how that actually got made. If without her,
yeah,
I think we'd still be working on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's great. It was great having that spreadsheet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, because we would have both been going, "Oh no, you're grand," and you're like, "No, you're grand, you're grand." It wouldn't, yeah. So we needed an American to come in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, was there one more question, Lane?
I can ask you that after if you guys.
Okay, grand. Right, Gavin, do you want to head off? We're going to bring in another
Sure,
special guest, and we'll bring you back at 8 for a wrap up, and you can show people your sketch if that's cool with you.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Debbie, all right, sure. Talk to you soon, so.
See you.
Thanks, Gav. Nice to meet you.
Thanks so much. Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's great to see you. Am I? Hang on, I'm not there.
There you are now.
There he is. Hey, Elaine, this is Jerry, and anyone who's tuning in now would know that Jerry Duggan is it Duggan or Dugan? People call you Dugan a lot.
I mean, we would probably historically answer to anything, but our side were the Duggans.
Yeah, well, I would say Duggan personally because that's what it
because
is.
it's the right way to pronounce his name.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I get annoyed.
Exactly
I hate all the like American pronunciation of Irish names like Costello and what's the other one?
It's not their fault though. You can't just say you hate them. Be careful. We're live on YouTube.
It's true. Another thing with Americans.
we have some Scottish blood up our family tree, and we lose them at a certain point because they just were making their mark. They were putting X's down, so we lost track. We were Magicians at one point, but we're mostly Irish, but we have some unknown Scottish origins. But yeah, we'll answer to anything.
Fair enough.
Perfect.
Well, yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Jerry, me and Jerry worked on Deadpool a million years ago together, not for a million years. But
it only felt like a million years.
Yeah. Was it you have a crime book at the moment called Dead Eyes?
Yeah. It's been wonderful to work with John McCrae and Mike Spicer, and I'd never worked with Will Dennis before, so it's been we put a we put a comic book about a world with no justice, and then we had our ups and downs there, but I couldn't be prouder of it. The first volume is in stores now, collected from Image, and I just want to say, I know you probably have been. Let me just congratulate you on Bog Bodies.
Oh, thanks, man. Cheers.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. We haven't actually had a proper chat about it since, but I didn't take your advice. I sent Jerry like a rough. Well, actually, no, like a first. The book finished with some edits needed, but you'd given me a suggestion that I didn't take, but it's only because I ran it by a few people, and I think it would have changed the pacing of the ending.
Sure.
Yeah, but I just wanted to let you know I didn't just ignore it, like going "fuck you, Jerry."
No, of course.
I mean, I did, but
yeah, but you have to know which notes to take and which ones to leave.
yeah.
The work in progress I saw was great. You could have hit print on that.
I think we pretty much. I mean, it's printed now, so I'm sure you're going to get it. But it's pretty much what you saw with some kind of tweaks. The nice thing of doing as a graphic novel, which like all your books are monthlies now, aren't they? And you run to get them done for the month they're going to come out, and then it's collected. But doing it as a graphic novel, if you do it well, you can kind of just sit on it for a little bit and kind of chew on it for a little while. You don't really have that luxury with a monthly.
Well, I think things will change out of this. I was already pivoting to, I loved the OGN format that you used, and the stuff that Ed and Sean, were doing with Bad Weekend and that sort of thing, of just being able to drop, one story at 60, 70, 80 pages, something like that, and get out of the monthly game, and all of a sudden have product that I think the store owners I talk to are very happy to sell that higher price point, material, and if it takes us out of the singles grind, great. So some of the things I'm doing at the moment that are on drawing tables around the world are that format, or the Bog Bodies.
Yeah, I mean, there's pluses and minuses to it. Like, the benefit of having like a monthly book, it means you can harp on about it every month while it's coming out.
Right.
And like you get more opportunity to let people know. With a graphic novel, well, and then once the issue's out, it's kind of old. With the graphic novel is it's not old straight away, but so you can kind of promote it for longer. But you just get that one, like right now the book is out, so after next week, people are either going to buy it or not, pretty much. And no matter how much, like even with Savage Town, I made a kind of a video to promote it last year, and everyone's like, I can't wait for this to come out. I'm like, it's been out a year and a half. It's like the signal boost on it is kind of, it's more focused, but but there's an argument there to have a wider beam that you cast out for longer. I think there's pluses and minuses. I wouldn't want to just do graphic novels, and I wouldn't want to just do monthlies. For a writer, I think it's good to kind of have a foot in both, maybe.
I think so. I love monthlies. I hope monthlies don't go away. I don't feel like they're going to, but it does feel good to be able to stretch a little bit and go, no, this, I can take my time with it, and make it a little bigger, and to your point, sort of wrench on it and then disappear for a little while and think about it and come back to it. So I look, I know we have gone a couple of months without comic books, but the whole time behind the scenes, I want everyone to know comic books are still being made, and maybe this will help the timeliness of some of these comics. Maybe
I was talking to Ed earlier, Ed Brisson, and we're kind of both saying something about like the shutdown and pandemic and whatnot, those things. But it's kind of forced people to kind of take a bit of a deep breath and kind of look at what they're making. Maybe push more for creator owned, or one thing I think is going to be interesting is there's going to be a lot of people who had careers that were going a certain direction, and now situation has changed, and they're just going to be making pure money decisions, like to pay their mortgages or whatnot. So it's a weird, it's thrown an alligator into the water weirdly, which is good and bad.
I, for one, welcome my alligator overlords. I have a lot of delicious meats you can eat.
Yeah, we'll survive. But yeah, I got to ask. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I have visited Ireland now, um, I think 4 times over the course of my life. I love it so much. You are presenting an Ireland that I don't get to see, so that's in your crime work in the 2 books Between Savage Town, and I just want to say how much I appreciate that peek into the alleyways in Ireland that I am not led down when I'm there.
Oh, thanks, man. I mean, like, I don't go down those alleyways either.
I know,
but
yeah,
but but like especially I was scrolling on Amazon there, and I saw this documentary about Dublin gangsters, and like there's a weird overblown media. It's weird here. Something I was saying to Ed too is like it's very well known here. Like all the crime stuff, there's a big gang war happening in Dublin at the moment, or it seems to have died down a bit, but it's there. There was one in Limerick when I was younger. The stuff's in the Irish media here a lot. Like there's a lot of
right.
like, or even I think like in Belfast, even with the pandemic coming on, a couple of guys got shot.
Wow.
Guy from Dublin. Like so, it's not stopping.
Right.
But I mean, I'm interested in all that stuff because I like the genre. And I've done a lot of research on it, but like I've never hung out with the criminal element or
How dare you? You're friends with. I see who you're friends with. You're being very polite.
Well, okay, criminals of a different kind, I guess. But I would have. Did you ever see The General? It's a John Boorman film with Jon Voight and Brendan Gleeson.
I love Boorman, but I haven't seen that, so I'm going to add it to my list of things.
You definitely should.
I haven't seen The General.
Yeah, it's 90. Do you remember that, Lane? Have you seen that?
What is it called?
The General. It's about the General, the gangster. It's Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
It was huge here. It was probably kind of I would say Brendan Gleeson's breakout role, but
Gotcha.
but it's about a real Dublin gangster who's kind of hated and beloved in different ways. But I remember like that kind of stuff there's a lot of films like that coming out at the time. There was a journalist called Veronica Guerin who'd been murdered. That was, I want to say that's like 97 maybe, sometime
Gotcha.
around then. So when I was in my teen years, there was a lot of that stuff kind of in the news that and in media, and and I loved sort of Scorsese films, so there was a crossover there for me. So I kind of got into all that. So I guess that's kind of it's me, the way we get to do superhero stuff that we would have been weaned on. This is a different genre that I'm kind of, I guess, trying to do a similar thing.
My secret origin into that world was also movies. We had a local station in New Jersey, WPIX, that would run great movies that like ordinarily TV stations now would not do. But my father would commute home from Manhattan into New Jersey, and he would stop by the newsstand, pick me up a comic book, and then a tabloid for himself, usually the Post or the Daily News or something like that. And I would read them both. I'm not sure that they necessarily knew that I was like reading the tabloid, but that was at the time when the Gambinos were ascendant.
Mm-hmm.
This was Mob Wars and Casta, the hits outside steakhouses and stuff. So like I was sort of like silly putty, just it was all being imprinted.
Yeah, I've been doing that the last few years. Listened to a lot of documentaries about the mafia, and I think I looked up the bar that Donnie Brasco would have been going to when he was, and I was like, that's like I used to go to a bar down the road in Williamsburg there. Like holy crap!
Right.
And where there was one guy that was shot, I can't remember, in a pizza parlor. I was like, that wasn't too far away from where I lived in Bed-Stuy. And all this other stuff, the steakhouse, all that stuff. Like, it's weird. It's kind of like I said, loving Scorsese and gangster films and all that when I was younger. It's another type of thing. Like Elaine and me were in New York one time, and I was like going, "Oh, look at the fire hydrants," because they're so different. Now Elaine was like, "Yeah, whatever," But like to
Yeah.
me, it was like watching. It was like being on a Hollywood set or something because I loved the fire escapes and everything. I like that. It's another form of like fantasy, except it's actually real.
Yeah, New York has that character, right? Like the first time you see those like water towers on the roofs and the fire escapes that look like the Zeppelin album, it captures your imagination, and I've always loved. To me, even the great superhero stories usually have some element of crime in them.
Yeah,
there's crime everywhere now. we're living in crime world. What are crimes?
But what made you want to do Dead Eyes then? Because like everything else you'd kind of done for the last while was Deadpool and superheroes, but like Infinite Horizon was I guess sci-fi. Analog's kind of like sci-fi crime, but Dead Eyes is kind of more straight vigilante justice.
Yep, he's a character that well, first, I think it was the opportunity to work with John, and we just talked about what we wanted to do, and I hadn't done a proper crime comic yet, and I wanted to write this desperate character who would do anything for money, and what was he doing coming out of retirement, and it was lightning in a bottle because what John did was sort of tell this. I just whispered that story to John, and then he sort of cooked it up and threw it into the world. I was trying to have my former retailer cap on when I said, well, a lot of my stuff is going to be in the Deadpool section. Boy, wouldn't it be neat? We can put dead in the title, and then just for the retailers. Look, I mean, for anyone, and maybe this is going off topic, but for anyone that is making comics, you really need to think about how they are marketed and sold. And even the titling of Analog, for me, I wanted it
to be at the front.
To be at the front.
Yeah,
not just for previews, but also even for shelf space.
I think you told me
the A's. Yeah,
I think
the A's have their own space, and then like the allotment gets shorter as you go down the alphabet. So.
Yeah, no, it's a very practical thing to consider, like because how the stuff is released. I was going to say something there as regards. I had a similar thing with Bog Bodies because I wish. When I did Savage Town, I was kind of overloaded at the time it was coming out, and there was things I wish I had done. Like, I have a friend who like makes clothes, and I talked to her about maybe making like a kind of a tracksuit jacket with the Savage Town logo on it. I'm like, that would have been fun. Or beer coasters with the logo on it. Things like that would have been fun to do. And when I was thinking of this, I'm like, oh well, I could bury a copy of the book and then have somebody find. And then you're like, it's not a good idea because so much of it is. Like you wouldn't know about it, but like in the Dublin Mountains, basically a lot of like people go missing or their bodies are dumped. A lot of women have gone missing out there. Like it's very much a real thing. And like I was like, well, I can't really do like really not gross, but like very tone deaf promotion would not be the way to do this. So
go dig up my body in the woods.
Yeah, it was like probably not the So I tried to. That's why I did something like a soundtrack, trying to lean into the cinematic feel of it rather than go. I could have gone more puerile with Savage Town, and it would have been fun. Right. But it wouldn't have been appropriate with this. But I mean, I'd be lying if I wasn't considering like how am I going to sell the book because yourself, like Deadpool sells himself, or or Marauders, X-Men sell themselves, trying to sell a new idea where no matter how good it is, no one's going to find out until they actually pick it up and try it. And you've got to try convince somebody that they're going to like something that they don't know what it is.
Right. Well, I'm glad you pitched that Marauders will sell itself, because there was a conversation that was had of going, hey, do we, this is a new title for a comic book, and I think that has landed really well. And I think the lesson was to try and take as big a swing as possible in your time at bat. The House and Powers, were giant swings from Jonathan and RB and Pepe. And the if anything, the lesson of the pandemic is, hey, you know, how many more swings do you get? You know,
Yeah.
take giant big swings.
Mm.
You know, make yours
Well, case
do
in
everything
point,
you can to, yeah, sleep at night. You know,
you could have done a superhero book that was just like Deadpool. You know, like that
Right.
would have been arguably the smarter thing to do when you were doing more image
Sure.
books. But I mean, you know, same here. Like I could just be doing Moon Knight, but at image. But like,
Right.
you know, I've really wanted to tell these stories, and
Yeah.
you know, I wanted to try, and whether they work or not, who knows? But like I said, you got to swing big. Like you can be smart about it, but you also don't want to be just making marketing decisions, you know,
Right.
because then what's the point of doing a creator-owned book?
And what you and Gavin did in Bog Bodies, especially as we talk about the woods, there is this feeling of dread that is pervasive, and it grows as you sort of are deeper into the story. And I've been in some of those woods with you, and thank you for not murdering me, by the way. But
Not for lack of
like, you know,
trying, Jerry. Not for lack of trying.
It'd be good for sales, so.
Yeah, you're right. Deadpool creator kills Deadpool creator.
there can be only one.
It's a dead pool.
But
Oh, damn it.
the visiting Dublin and driving out there and seeing actually that Hellfire Club up on the hill,
Oh,
you
yeah.
could easily sort of, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to go, oh yeah, some really bad stuff happened here. And that's like, you know, we have that in I grew up in basically what you would consider Sopranos country in northern New Jersey. You know, there were all sorts of stories about the Meadowlands and jokes about where Jimmy Hoffa's buried, but like there's sometimes some truth to those stories.
Yeah, when I was doing Savage Town, I was worried because Limerick had a bad rep for violence. Like it had a nickname, Stab City, and it was trying to get over that. And you know, the things had gotten a lot better since those, because you know it'd been 10 years had passed, and I was worried that people would react really badly. And like there was a couple of bad responses, but for most cases, I think, I mean, what I like, while the book is fictional in that it's, you know, crime, what I like about both books is that it feels genuine in, like, you know, the characters feel real and they seem authentic and sincere. And I like writing those a lot. Like I like writing people going like, feck it, you know, because I don't get to read it that much, and I don't see it on screen that much. So it's really it's fun to write in an Irish accent. Like it's really enjoyable, you know.
It's fun to read, and I think you hit the nail on the head of, you found something that you wanted to see in the world but were not getting. And so even if you are making something and it ends up not being, you know, the new Deadpool, it doesn't matter. What you need to do is just fulfill yourself. And I don't think I've ever seen that go bad. You know, I'm sure that there are examples, but you know, it's to thine own self be true, and it's why it's so cliche, but it's sincerely true. I've never regretted ever sort of going off and doing what I thought should be done, to sleep like a baby at night.
Oh, I'm glad.
Put your crime
Easy
comics
conscience.
out.
Yeah. Are there any questions, Elaine? I don't know if there's any. I'm not seeing the stream, so.
Yeah, just a lot of smart asses, to be honest with you.
Grand.
Yeah.
Stab City was an awful choice by the Limerick Tourist Board. Thanks for that one. But
well, maybe we could rebrand it as Suture City, where it implies that you've received attention for your stabs.
That's a good one, actually.
Suture
Yeah.
City.
Yeah, we'll send that to the tourist board for the right price.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's the crime writer. For the right price.
Just one from me. Why do people in comics seem to like Declan? Because as his sister, it's
Well, you also hit the nail on the head. We seem to like Declan.
okay, there you go.
But, not all.
That was.
You know what was funny though about Declan? What year would it have been when we were at a con together, right? Before working together. The cool thing, and you think about that for a minute, and what I wanted to say was, the other thing about breaking into comics is when you look around at the people, whether they're writers, artists, colorists, whatever they're doing, these are the people that you're going to come up with. And so it's a community, it's a small community. It behooves you to act appropriately and act cool and be cool and try to help each other whenever possible, because it really is a mountain that you're climbing, and you will need help at different stages or be able to provide help on the way up. And so I thought we had a pretty good sort of graduating class of ding dongs at these shows who we weren't knives out against each other. And I think actually that shows in the work and in some of the relationships.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess when you meet somebody and you know that they're sound, then you give them I mean, if you worked with somebody blank without never having worked with them, there's a big leap of faith as regards what their intent is. I think it might have been 2012. I'm thinking when we were sitting next to each other, and I mean, I really wanted to work with Rick, like crazy. I loved Rick's stuff for ages, and he was flying high at the time. Not anymore. I mean, he's clearly done so terribly since. But I don't know. But you were sitting at his table, or your table was between us. I think I forget our words, but we just ended up chatting the whole time and got on grand. But I mean, I think your Deadpool book had just started coming out, but I wasn't chatting to you to get a leg up. I didn't even want to do a Deadpool book. But we had the weekend to just kind of. Because Rick had a queue,
right.
we had all the time in the world to get to know each other.
We only had each other.
Exactly. But and I think you try work with people who you like. I mean, it doesn't always. It doesn't. You don't always have to do it, but like I've only done 5 issues with you, but like we've stayed friends since, and it's not because of the 5 issues; it's because we were friends before.
And those are 5 pretty good issues.
Congratulations. I feel bad. How many issues did you do of that book?
It depends how you count it, but it's somewhere around 100 or north of 100.
Yeah, and yes, those 5 are the best ones. No, I told you before. Mike Hawthorne was on that book as well, and I felt like he got a raw deal because he did so much brilliant work on that book, and the one arc I did, like I just feel it gets a disproportionate amount of.
We borrow Cap and Logan, and that's what happens. Is a little bit of lightning in a bottle. Actually, Mike was a big reason why I stuck around on that book, because I think the first time I sort of thought that would be a great exit was the wrap of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and they were like, no, you can stick around and do more, and I was like, I don't know. It ended up being, of course, the right decision, but then you end up with an artist like Mike Hawthorne and Scott Koblish and then Mateo, and that's 3 weapons that they made me look awful good for a real long time.
Yeah, that is one thing I learned as well with working with like Gavin or whoever else. The guys who draw your scripts definitely make you better, But what was it? Thanks for not actually. Thanks for tiptoeing around Elaine's question, which is nobody actually likes me; they just seem to. Was there any actual questions, Elaine? Because I think we got 2 minutes before we gotta bring Heather in.
What are your favorite crime books or movies, Jerry?
You know what? That's a great question, and we'll go back to the great John Borman. Point Blank from starring Lee Marvin is this wonderful crime movie that it's iconic. It's wonderful. You go check it out. That's great. The Brubaker and Phillips comics are wonderful. Of course, Bog Bodies deserves your attention. I will watch anything Scorsese. The Parker novels, especially the Darwin Cook adaptations, are wonderful. Actually, Point Blank is also a Parker adaptation. So those are the things that really excite me. If I haven't bored anyone to tears, please check out Dead Eyes. It's a pretty wonderful labor of love especially from McRae. That's at Image too. So I
As
have no
you,
intention of leaving crime too. Like I have more crime that's on drawing boards now. So
Deadly.
Nice.
No,
Yeah.
well, I'll definitely read those, man. Like I kind of feel like all the crime comics guys got a support. Like, as I see that
yeah.
Joe, I know Jacob Phillips and I can't remember his name. The guy who's writing that Texas Blood, and they're doing that Brutal Dark book.
Yep.
And a friend of mine, Rory, just did a book called Written in Blood. Like, it's such a great genre that doesn't get as much sales as other arguably better or less books. But I as a fan of the genre, I'd like to read more of it. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I we'll see. I think maybe we'll see a groundswell, and perhaps we'll see crime as a on the up and up genre. One other one that's Boston crime related. The Friends of Eddie Coyle is a great Robert Mitchum
yeah,
film.
it's
It's on
70s.
Criterion.
Okay.
70s. There's a lot, like that was the the real true golden age of crime flicks.
Yeah, I haven't
The
seen that.
seven-
I saw a really naff trailer for it, but like,
yeah,
the
check it
Friends
out.
of Eddie Doyle. Like, it looked terrible,
yeah,
but I'm sure the film is good.
Yeah, the give it a chance.
I will.
And I don't know if you'd consider Sorcerer a crime story. I don't think so, but
haven't seen
there's
it.
a lot of criminals in Sorcerer. That's a Friedkin movie, and it's maybe my favorite Friedkin.
All right.
Roy
I know
Scheider.
it.
So yeah, it's very, very quickly transitions out of crime, but the criminals really make it sing. So
Savage.
those are my recommendations. Who do you have following me?
Heather.
Ah, very good. Tell Heather I said hello. I miss her.
I will.
Mhm.
In fact, we'll do that in 2 minutes.
Very good.
All right. Cheers, Jerry. Thanks a million, man.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me, and congrats again.
Ah,
Elaine,
cheers, man.
wonderful to see you.
Nice
Yeah.
to see you. Take care. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, of course. Take care.
Hello.
Hello.
Actually,
I
Jerry,
just wanted to say hi, Heather.
Yeah.
Hey, Jerry.
It's Jerry. I'm here. It's wonderful to see you.
Hi. This is a lovely surprise.
Yeah, here,
I
Elaine.
know.
Elaine, let's go.
Yeah,
No, it's
Look
a
me up
lovely
anytime, but-
Deadpool family reunion.
We were just talking about that. Thank you for all your hard work on that and making us look so good.
Well, I do what I can. Technically, it's Declan who's making everyone look good by drawing
I
all
know,
the pretty
that's
pictures.
Well,
true,
listen,
but
yeah,
you can't
thanks
tell
for
Declan that his head is already, Stonehenge.
this is
size.
actual size. Like,
I'll let you
man.
guys get to it. It's wonderful to see you, though.
Good to
Take
see you.
care.
Take care.
See you, man.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Jerry.
so, Heather, how's things?
Going pretty good. I was just talking to a friend this morning that I'm coming up on 3 months of not socially seeing another human being.
Is it that long now?
It's coming up. It'll be that next week for me. It'll be hitting 3 months. So,
Wow.
but I have a cute little puppy over here that keeps me company. So.
Yeah,
Oh, that's good.
Elaine has one too.
Yeah.
Is she asleep,
Yeah.
Elaine, or what's she doing?
She is. You can see her.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
She's almost 2. She's a giant. She's like 60 pounds of love.
Yeah. No, we got this little baby.
Oh, hi.
oh,
Oh my God, look at those ears.
I know the ears are lovely.
Yeah, they're her Yoda ears, I call them.
Oh my God, so cute.
She's 4 months. We're in the middle of
Oh, that's
teething.
fun.
So
Mm.
I wake up in the middle of the night and step on teeth on the
Oh
floor
God.
because they fall out. So
Oh, it
that's
sounds like a
always a fun
nightmare.
surprise.
Fun.
Yeah. Like, oh, wait a second. Okay.
It's like Legos. It's like stepping on Legos, except these things,
They're
are-
needles.
Yeah.
Lego with needles. Awesome. Just with this 2020, man. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Heather. I know I wanted to get you on because somebody was asking earlier on about writing, and me and Gavin were saying that without you, that we'd probably still be like working on the book.
No, you guys were pros, man. Like, I mean, you and I, we've worked together so much.
Yeah. So for
over the
those
years.
who don't know, so Heather was an editor at Marvel Comics back when I was doing things like Deadpool covers, but I did you hired me to write the Deadpool versus Old Man Logan miniseries. So yeah, we'd worked together for like two or 3 years. Probably. How long were you at Marvel?
3 years. I was
3
there
years.
3 years. So we worked together straight from the inception at Marvel, like as soon as I started.
Yeah, I was pretty much doing a cover for you like nearly every month on various different projects across the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, wait. I know that for sure because I remember counting up the amount of covers I had done, and like most of them had been from you. I was like, man, I'm glad I'm in Heather's good books. But what was it? But also I had hired Heather to help me with like creator own work after she left Marvel because we got on really well, and because you were the editor, because you'd hired me to write the Deadpool versus Old Man Logan book, and we had a really good back and forth with that. I thought it would make sense because I had Sebastian Gerner on Savage Town, but I just really liked the back and forth with you because any note that you had was fair, even if I disagreed with it, we could still kind of talk it over, and I felt like it made what I was doing better, definitely. And I think I'm seeing reviews coming in for Bog Buddies now, and I think that definitely seems to be the case on this too.
Yay. Well, we have a really good rapport, working together and not working and not working together.
Yeah, that's when we get on best.
Yeah. When you don't owe me anything. But working, Gavin, this was my first time meeting Gavin and working with Gavin and Rebecca as well on colors, and y'all are an editor's dream. Like, you are such pros, you hit your deadlines, and on top of that, you communicate, which, as you know, even if you can't hit your deadline or life happens or whatever, like, all an editor wants is communication.
Sure.
And we were very fortunate in that Bog Bodies, were not held to a print deadline in the same regard as like a monthly series. Is we had a lot more flexibility, but we had so much lead time because we started working on this over a year ago, like
yeah. I can't remember when I reached out to you about it, but I remember you bugging me about it a lot, but I mean, that's what I wanted, like, because I'm just busy with so many things. Unless I have somebody kind of prodding me to push it along, it'll always get relegated to something that has a more pressing deadline. But I remember, like, I kind of had stories like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, but every time I sent it to you, you just kind of had more questions as to why is this and this isn't clear, and I realized kind of what my problem with that. I brought it up earlier on. My problem with my writing is I write it thinking I know what it is, but I'm not explaining it for the person who's actually going to.
You have to communicate it, yeah.
Yes.
No,
For
like,
sure. You just can't read minds, but that was great because it felt like it made me a better. It's I could hire somebody who just tells me I'm great. In fact, maybe I will do that. I don't know, but it's better to have somebody pushing me because I'm always worried. Like, is it good? And to see what you were saying about being an editor's dream, like all I want to know is if, like, I think any editor I've ever worked with, I just want to hear, like, you're doing good. I just want a pat on the head and be told that I'm doing a good job. Because every job I've ever had, I'm just like, oh, I hope they like me. But it was different with this because, like, I was the boss because I was hiring you, which means I can, I've said to other people, it's like, I can, you would have notes on the book that I chose to not take.
For sure.
But what I like about that is I'm still wants to hear what you had to say. And if I took it on board, I didn't take it on board, that's up to me. But I mean, I'd say I probably took 90% of what you said on board and incorporated it.
Yeah, it's how I describe, when I do a lot of talks and people ask, like, what's the difference between, like, editing for Image versus like a Marvel or Valiant, and it's I describe it as simply as it's keeper of the keys, right? Like, when it comes to licensed properties, the editor is the keeper of the keys, the editor is the law. Sorry, you can't kill Spider-Man. We kind of need that character to exist, right? But if when it comes to something like Bog Bodies, where you own the property, and you're just bringing me on for, creative input and critique. And you might write, okay, I'm going to kill off the main character in the first 20 pages, and the rest of the 20 pages we're just going to stare at his grave. That's what we're going to do. We're going to stare at his dead body, and we're going to watch it decompose
for 60 pages.
Exactly. And that's where, like, as an editor, I'd be like, that's a very interesting idea, Declan. I've never seen something like that before, but I think, if we were to do something, we would want to do that later on, for reasons X, Y, and Z. And you can be like, I value your input, Heather, but screw off. I'm the artist. I'm gonna do what I want, right? And that is my, okay, I said my piece,
Sure.
and that's what I love about our rapport working together, is we do have that trust in one another, where you always know that I'm looking out for the best quality product, right? The best quality book, and it's never malicious, and it's never like meant to be like, oh, you suck and this is bad. It's maybe this might work better, what do you think? And if you tell me, I really like what I'm doing, I really want to pursue this, then it's my job to respect that and incorporate, okay, well, if you want to take this detour, how do we still get to our final destination the best way possible?
Yeah, no, I think I did a radio interview with the Irish radio thing there during the week, and I told a story about how you had said I was using the F word so much that it was losing power, and my argument back was like, that's okay, because it's not about the swear words having power. It's the cadence of how we talk. And they thought what I meant was, an American editor was telling me, that I can't make it Irish. Like, I think that's what they were getting from what I was saying. I was like, no. Like, that's a good note to get, because even though my answer back to you is, this is why it's like that, it's good for me to hear the question, because, like, I didn't have a justification for it until I thought about it.
Right.
Unless you brought it up, I can't go, no, this is a deliberate choice. Whereas I actually have to think about it for a second to go, no, actually, that is what I want. But better to get the note and make the decision than just just go, oh, well, if that's what, not even bring the note. You're not helping me unless we have that conversation.
No, for sure. And it's I like to equate it always back to like a GPS, right? You input your destination in the GPS, and it's the GPS is telling you, this is the way to go, this is the way to go, this is the way to go, and you take a wrong turn, like, or you just decide not to go the route the GPS is going, like, that's a choice, and you're sticking to it. And as the editor, as the GPS, like, it's like, okay, then let's take this route now. And it's not a bad or good thing. It's not that ever. It's all about, more so than anything else, it's about making sure that you and I are on the same page about the goals of the book,
And do you think it would have changed? I mean, because I remember I actually kind of switched up the ending near the end. I'm trying to think where I would have veered in one way or the other. I mean, I was saying to a question earlier on that the plot stayed the same pretty much, but I think it was always down to the end how, I don't want any spoilers, obviously, but it got to the same end point, but how it got there kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah. You always had a very clear plan of, it's about these three guys, and this is the inciting incident, right? That never changed. And you always had the, I guess, overall theme and reveal, like that was, you had A and Z very, very well defined, and you knew that, which is great. It's great that you had that, and we're very confident in that. But yeah, we had some things would shift and change throughout the middle, which is normal. That's a very normal thing. And even as you were writing it, had you decided upon a different ending because the characters were taking you in a different direction, like, that's totally okay and very normal too.
It's I'm working on something at the moment, and I'm co-writing it with something, and we're talking about how, like, planning this and planning that, and like we realize all the things that we love, like we're talking about have you seen Better Call Saul? And there's reference to characters from Better Call Saul in the first episode of Breaking Bad, but they didn't plan that in episode 1 of Breaking Bad, because that was a one-off mention in a show 12 years ago, It's always the illusion of plans, and I guess having not written much before and then starting writing, I had this thing in my head where everything was always figured out completely. And I guess some writers are like that, but I find I end up kind of like, even with the Deadpool versus Old Man Logan book, I remember I changed the ending in that. I think maybe that's why I wanted to work with you on Bog Bodies, was I wanted to take a different turn with it. And not only were you okay with it, but because we were so far ahead on the schedule, we were able to do it. And I think that's, I mean, you were always great at scheduling, and because of it, was able to massage a story to get it better. And that was the advantage of doing a graphic novel too.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's, there are a lot, and I've worked with, a lot of writers of different creative properties where everything has to be answered ahead of time. And like, God bless the people that do that, and can do that. That process stresses me out so much.
Yeah,
because
no.
right, well, to me it's like, well, what happened, it's like Jenga, the game Jenga. And it's like, what happens when I'm 100 pages into a thing, and then I like realize this one thing crumbles everything, that
yeah, because I find basically what is kind of, well, sometimes it makes it better is the stuff that you hadn't considered. I think that the closest thing I've described the writing process for me is when sculpture, excuse me, in that you know what it is, but you're just kind of like, again, I thought writers just wrote it down perfectly, but the fun part for me is kind of moving something around and putting it here and moving that dialogue there, and it's like you're it's like a weird, it's like a design, you're designing it, and once I kind of got my head, once I was able to see it like that, as a process, it was a lot more enjoyable for me.
Well, I mean, that's a great, I think that's a very great metaphor in comparison to,
Thanks.
your work as an artist, even. But no, because like bringing it back to you, like we've worked on a million different covers together, right? And you're one of my favorite cover artists because of how you think about design, and because of how you like you always choose very specific reasons as to why you design a cover the way you do, and whenever I have notes on it, you always come back and you fight me on it, because
Yeah,
like
you
see it a very specific way. You do. No, but I love that because there's so much conviction in it, because you thought about it, and it's very, very specific. But when you were first drawing covers and becoming a cover designer, like that stuff didn't come to you as quickly either, I'm sure. Like,
true, yeah, there's stuff that's kind of like a built up like a toolbox as such, but I'd say at the same time though, is like I say, you and I would not fight but have a debate over it, is that you kind of have to force me to justify my bullshit at the same time.
yeah,
because like I could just come up with some bollocks and go, there you go, and if it's just bollocks, you've caught me. But if I actually have a genuine reason, then I can argue my point more. And again, I'd say in those cases, 90% of the time you worked with me rather than against me, and 10% of the time you're just like, it's just a no to this, we can't do that. And I think in all those cases, again, I think the cool thing about creator owned is that if you're jammed up creatively on one thing, you can kind of, like, I know some people who are just working on work for hire stuff, and they get really pissed off at the process, and I understand why. But it's better to have something where you can kind of vent and do everything that you want, rather than trying to make the thing that's literally work for hire into a creator-owned thing. It's just not going to happen. And at the same, I think doing both keeps you fresh either way. Like we're saying with, debating story, and you have the final say when we were at Marvel, and I have the final say now. But they both work for the situation that you're in.
Oh, I think a good comparison is like, playing with Play-Doh versus playing with action figures, right? Like action figures are great because you get to play with the toys that you love.
Yeah.
And create these scenarios.
I never did that, and that's not a thing.
Real. No, definitely not.
No.
And
Elaine definitely didn't break my. Oh, maybe I shouldn't bring this up.
You can. I mean, I'm not the one who's scarred over it. I don't care.
Well, I was telling our mother recently that you broke the head off my He-Man, but then she reminded me that I accidentally burnt your white teddy because I left him too close to the fire, and I had completely.
Oh, hang on. This was like a little So yeah, I'm sorry. I was 4 years old and I pulled the head off your He-Man and threw it down the stairs. But whatever.
Yeah.
I had a little like puppy thing that was attached to like a handle, and as you push it along the floor, it goes. Rop, rop, rop.
Yeah, it was like a
Then
little
you
doggy.
put it into the fireplace and burnt it.
I didn't put it into the fireplace. I left it
You
by.
did.
I did. No, I don't think I did.
No, I remember you standing there. So.
Well, I didn't mean to burn it though. Well, it melted. It didn't
And
burn
this is
so much
where
as
the
it.
darkness comes from.
Yeah, that's it. That's where.
It all makes so much sense
All
now.
makes sense now.
Now bog bodies make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, the quiet little boys, they're always the ones to watch.
It's true. It's true. No, but I was gonna say, like, it's like playing with action figures versus playing with Play-Doh. Like Play-Doh, you can mold and shape and build your own world and do whatever you want with that and create your own monsters. And there's something very creatively fulfilling about that, but also challenging and intimidating. At the same time, it's also very creative, fulfilling, and challenging to play with, established characters.
But do you have that now? Because like someone, because for those who don't know, Heather's editor at Valiant. That's so much of your job is that now, maintaining. Even when it was your job at Marvel, but now like it's more. You have more toys that you have to make sure that nobody breaks. You don't put those near the fireplace. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing is I love breaking toys.
Okay.
I like pushing characters to their limits and seeing what makes them break, right? And that's not saying like I'm killing off entire universes at a time. That's not my goal. That's not what I want. But
with those things, I think you bend them just to the point of breaking, right?
Right. Yeah, you bend them to see like where do their themes and morals and ethics lie, and we all say like, with great power there comes great responsibility, right? And it's
wrong company.
And I'm saying broad general, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's you take that theme and you take that status quo and you put it in situations and scenarios that you never thought you would see, right? And like, how does that break the character? How does that challenge the character? And how does that shift the universe from then on? What does it mean? Like one of the series I'm working on at Valiant right now, The Final Witness, is all about like truly what does it mean to be a hero and what is worth saving one life for versus another. And which is the theme that gets, I think, touched on a lot in superhero comics but not really explored. And it's very rewarding but also challenging and intimidating, because when you're in charge of these characters that have such legacies, right, and such passionate fan bases, I think it's very easy to just do what's always done and what's always liked, and you'll be fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But me, I like a challenge.
That I do know. I want to wrap up in 3 minutes with you because I know you have another appointment. But is there are there any questions there that you think would be good, or do you have any yourself?
Yeah,
we'll go with one because Heather doesn't have much time.
Okay, if I was quicker at this, that'd be easier.
I can do 2. I will give you 2.
Okay.
Legend, thank you. One person says, couldn't have picked a better editor. Heather's always smashed it. I hope she's doing well at Valiant, which I thought was really nice. I wanted to share with you. Was there any consideration to delay the book until you could actually promote it in other venues?
No. I mean, by the time the book
we had already sent it to print.
Yeah, exactly. But when the virus hit, the book had just been printed. So it was sitting. Well, I had been told it was printed, but it needed to be bound. And then I got my comps like 3 weeks later. I was like, oh, okay, so it has been made. It didn't come up, but I think I wanted. I mean, weirdly, because of the well, you know what? I'll answer that question after Heather's done. I can answer that myself. But if there's one for Heather, let her answer, and I can come back with that.
Yeah, this is just for me. Is he better to work with as an artist or a writer, and which is more annoying?
Yeah, that's a taking a bit of time with that one, Heather.
I like it. No, I've not thought about this. This is a very good question. I would say no. I like both, but I like both for very, very different reasons. when it comes to working with Deck as an artist, especially covers and interiors. Like Deck is such a pro in what he does, and you've honed your craft so well that it all comes to just refining. At this point, it's just refining. Like, I go to you for a cover, like, I know it's going to be a great cover. If I'm going to have any notes, that's very, very, very minimal, stuff. And because I trust you. And like, when it comes to interiors, like, you really think about your storytelling, and you're very, very good at it. And again, it's just refining. So that makes my job as an editor very, very easy, because I don't have to be as hands-on. But when it comes to your writing, you're still, you're still younger at it, and you're still developing those skills, which is a lot of fun for me, because then I get to get in the grit with you and like really, really work and develop and ask questions and
Sure,
challenge
like
you.
I can tell you like to get into things, but I'm sure sometimes it's nice not to have to.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, it's as I say, it's as I'm training my assistant and associate at Valiant, I always tell them, like, there are going to be a lot of creators that are going to be a lot of work. They're going to be worth it. But you don't want to cast an entire book full of creators that are a lot of work.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
pick and choose, because and that's not a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. It's just, that much critical thinking is a lot of is exhausting for an editor. But it's our jobs, and we love it, and we do it for a reason.
So so equally annoying and good in either discipline.
Yeah.
It depends on the challenge I'm looking for.
Sure.
I was going to say depends on the Zoom meeting you're in, but
Elaine, you and I can talk off.
Yeah, no worries.
Sure, Heather, I'll let you off. Thanks so much for calling in, and it's great to catch up.
Lovely to meet you, Heather.
Lovely to meet you. Maybe next time when I'm in Ireland, if it actually happens.
I didn't get to go either.
Yeah, you were going to be here at the same time, actually. So you would have met in person, but now it's internet.
Oh well. All right. Take care, guys.
All right. See you, Heather.
Bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Declan, I'm just going to bring in your next guest.
Okay. Right. How are you holding up?
Good, thanks. Yeah. Eric Kelleher is coming in now.
Oh, grand.
Just take a moment to join him in.
Right. I will answer that question that was asked before. Is the virus hit as the book was already in motion, so it was already at printers, it was already at distribution. So I mean, it wasn't brought up if I wanted to push it back anymore. But over the shutdown, the sales actually went up. I thought the orders went up. I was worried they were going to go down with some stores closing down, but people seem to get behind the book more because there wasn't as much content out. So all in all, it worked out better. Even though it means there's less places I can promote it in Ireland, I would say. But I mean, Ireland was never going to be where I made most sales. I mean, it'll do well in comic shops here. I'd like to get it in more bookshops and things like that. But so I would say the virus kind of got in the way in that regard. But ultimately, most of the sales are going to be in America and non bookshops anyway. So.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Okay, cool.
How's all this so far?
Yeah, very good. Eric, are you there?
I am. Yeah.
Hey, there he is.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining.
I can't see any of you guys though.
Oh, we can't see you, so
we can't do anything for that.
Yeah,
We're both very bad at the internet.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'd say there's like a video icon down the bottom, because I think when it opens up, the video is automatically off.
It should be bottom left. Yeah,
there you go.
There he is now.
I'm used to another video streaming product.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, "Hey, we should hang out on House Party." I was like, "What? I just got the Zoom thing. Like, how many bloody apps are there?
The internet moves fast, Dick.
I guess so. So for those who don't know, Eric here is he's the man behind the soundtrack for Bog Bodies. He wrote and produced it for me, and I'm delighted with it. I have no idea.
My favorite part. No offense.
Really, have you heard it?
Yeah, I listened to it while I was reading. It was so creepy and eerie.
Really?
I love
Cool.
it.
I haven't talked to anybody who actually listened and read. What was it? What was it like?
Oh, I thought that it was like a listen along thing. I don't read comics. This is my first one that I've ever read.
It's fine. I've been doing this 15 years ago. No, well, no. I mean, like me and Eric were talking about it. Like it would have been too. It would have been a minefield to try and time it with reading.
Yeah.
But like, so that just wasn't realistic. But like, you could just make the music for the best you could make it, and just see what happens after that.
Yeah, I think it's something that it was a major consideration for me, was to try to make the music as kind of subtle and continuous as possible, that it doesn't interrupt you from reading. It doesn't kind of jump in at any point and demand your attention, but it kind of evolves and kind of moves you through the story. And that was my aim with it anyway.
Yeah, because even the way you read it, it will be different for two different people. Some will read slower. So I know some people like will just look at the pictures and then read. Some do it at the same time. It's weird. So you can't really accommodate for that. But also like it feels like a movie soundtrack, which is kind of what I wanted anyway. I was telling the guys earlier on as regards promoting it. I couldn't kind of go the way we did with Savage Town, which could be a little bit more playful because of because of that book. This is not remotely. It's funny in places, but it's not a playful book because it's too real in places. So I can't go that route. So I might as well go something a bit more high class, something more highfalutin, I guess, by making like a kind of like a movie soundtrack to it. But yeah, it's funny because I remember originally I think I'd asked you for a music suggestion for the Savage Town video I was doing, and then I was thinking I would do the same for this. I made a little animated trailer for it, and you suggested making the music for that. And then I can't remember. I think you said it would be cool if there was a soundtrack, maybe, or was it me? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think you just left the door open a little bit, and I just shoved my foot into it.
That was
Grand.
it's fine for me. Like, because I mean, it wasn't much work for me other than like you sending me some drafts and looking for some suggestions. But otherwise, you did it all yourself. Like, what was the process for you?
It's kind of funny because the first kind of memory I have of how this came about was suggesting tracks for the Savage Town teaser.
Yeah,
we went with
because
Punch-
we know
with
each other.
Punch.
We know each other from our college in Limerick, and you were from Limerick. So I was looking for Limerick recommendations at the time, which worked out great. But yeah, I think then I think you asked if I'd be up for making the music for that video.
Yeah, so I've been kind of messing around. Like I've been a musician for God quite some time, but always as a hobby, never really trying to do anything beyond that. But I've been kind of getting back into it and messing around with stuff. And when you were looking for something for the teaser, I was like, oh yeah, I can put something together for that. And then it kind of just evolved from there, like stuff. And I was saying this to your mom when we were talking out in Big Bang Comics, that the whole process with the soundtrack was really, really natural, because I think it started. You gave me an amazing reference point, which was the Pine Barrens episode of The Sopranos.
Right. Yeah.
And like that's my favorite episode of The Sopranos. It's my favorite show. So I think I instantly kind of got the vibe that the book, and that's before I'd even read a word or seen any of the artwork. But I think I understood straight away the vibe you were going for. And then from
I'm just looking, man. That Sopranos thing was supposed to be this weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually.
Well, yeah, Eric had gotten us tickets to go meet some of the cast from Sopranos. Well, stupid virus.
What's
Sorry.
What's the drinking policy on this call?
Oh, by all means, go
Work
ahead.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God,
God.
that's fantastic. I'm so jealous.
I want to go get a can now. It's the weather for it as well.
I can only get bottles of Guinness over here just so you can all pity me. Oh, no, that's not true. Well, while the bars are closed anyways.
Sorry, man, what were you saying before I interrupted you?
No, just that you gave me that reference point and it kind of happened organically. And I was saying it to your mom that like, I don't think at any point of making the 8 tracks for the soundtrack, there was ever kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. It just seemed to kind of make sense. And then as I saw more of the book as it was being created, it just, I don't know, it just happened really organically, really kind of naturally, just kind of came together. And it was really, really interesting to see that. And like, I remember we went for a pint and you were telling me that like, you, like when you'd send me drafts of the thing, I'd read them, or when there was panels you shared, I'd like literally put them on screen and have a slideshow of them rotate through as I was just messing around with the
Makes
tracks.
sense. And then as I saw more
And I
of the
think
book as it was
you
being
had said that
created,
when I was sending you
it just,
bits and
I don't
bobs
know,
that I was working on, you were like playing them while you were writing and stuff. So like I just found that kind of fascinating, that one thing fed into the other and it fed back and it just kept kind of evolving. And I think that kind of is how the soundtrack came out as well.
But you were telling me though that near the end there, though, what was taking a lot of time was producing it. Like, so you had you not produced stuff before, or?
I had, but like only ever for myself, and I'd never had to pass them along to pros to do things like mastering them. And it was quite funny that in the end the book was mixed by a guy called Ian McNulty, who has the patience of a saint, and it was mastered by a guy called Richard Dowling in Web Mastering in Limerick. And Richard is like, he's very, very good at his job. And I sent him stuff going, I have these 8 tracks, I need to get them mastered. And he basically basically came back and goes, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, that's wrong, like a big list of stuff that I didn't understand. So I went, I think I'm gonna need someone else's help here.
Yeah.
So I got onto Ian, and Ian's fantastic. But because of Corona, we couldn't go down the usual route, which would be you'd kind of do rough mixes remotely with each other, and then go into a studio for the day, and then you do your final mixes. Instead, we had to do everything via email, because with audio it's different. Like the way it plays on your speakers isn't going to be the way it plays on my speakers and my
Right.
headphones and stuff. So we did a lot of email correspondence, just to get everything to a place where we were both happy with it. So I don't recommend doing it that way if you can avoid it. Very
Fair enough.
time-consuming.
Yeah, of all the
It's
things
like
the
painting a
coronavirus
house
did.
with the toothbrush.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, man, you could have just put it out. I didn't notice much. Sorry, it's not I didn't notice much of a difference. It definitely sounded better after you had it mastered. But I mean, the stuff you had it in, I was like, yeah, you could have put that up online, and I would have been happy. But like, clearly, you wouldn't have been happy.
I know, but it's those little touches. Yeah, but like, I mean, you want to ensure it's the best quality playback for anyone who's listening to it, who's enjoying the book, because you don't want that moment of like, if something jumps or it's too loud and it interrupts someone when they're reading. You want to kind of set that mood, and that's kind of what the objective of the thing was for me, was to kind of just give it a landscape for you to read it in,
Mm-hmm. And
I mean, it was so easy to get that with the artwork, because like, I absolutely loved everything that I saw as it came in. And like even when I first, like, because I think you'd sent me a black and white ink version of it, and then when I saw the full color, I was like, wow, like the blues and the reds and stuff that's seen in at the start. I was nearly give away a spoiler there.
well, I mean, the first scene's a fair game, like, but no, I similarly, because I remember you complimenting Gavin's black and white artwork, and a lot of people were saying like, oh, you don't need color, and then once it was colored, everyone's like, oh, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
But what was kind of nice about it is because I listen to a lot of instrumental stuff like Mogwai when I'm writing, because anything with lyrics just kind of throws me off. But I thought was so cool is by the time I was writing the last half of the book, you had, I think, you had like 4 or 5 rough cuts of different tracks, so I was able to listen to those while I was writing. So it felt like, the art was informing the story and the soundtrack was informing the story, and clearly the story was informing the art because he needed a script. But also, yeah, it worked out really collaboratively in a way which I'm not sure he could have planned it that way.
Absolutely, 100%. Like if you tried to plan it that way, everything would be late and
Yeah.
the whole thing would fall apart. But yeah, it's really fantastic. And then like, I guess just when I was talking about spoilers there, it made me think of like, I remember like having to pick titles for like earlier on, kind of going, oh, you have to, like, I kind of set my side on 8 tracks. I was like, pick 8 lines from the book chronologically as you go through the book, and then that kind of acts as a signpost of where you are in the book. And then even having to do that without giving away a spoiler was quite difficult.
Well, even
really difficult.
I did a podcast about the book there with a friend of mine, and I just tiptoed around the whole thing because there's a spoiler like 20 pages in, but I mean, I think that's basically the rough kind of plot of the book. It's the hook, as it's what you'd explain to people. But then anything after that really kind of changed it, especially the end. But even like 3/4 of the way through, it significantly changed what the book is, and you don't want to lead with that, otherwise it defeats the point of reading the book. So yeah, it's just so funny to try and talk about something that you can't talk about, you know. But like, you know, having done this now, like, is this something you'd like to do again, or are you like, well, I've done it, I'm done?
I mean, after the lockdown's finished, I'm not going through that mixing again. But yeah, no, definitely. I think it's like, I think it's kind of, as I was saying, it was kind of starting to get back into kind of making music and messing around with it and stuff. And I think this kind of has given me a bit of the bug again. Definitely in at the start of the process, where I just kind of was like, these things are just happening, and these different songs that have different characters and stuff were just kind of happening. I was like, this is kind of mad. Like a night of just sitting a couple of hours sitting in front of the computer, noodling on a guitar or messing around with synthesizers and stuff can just create something that just feels like a picture, which I think is what I was hoping to do. But like, it's definitely given me the I guess the get up and go to kind of do more stuff. It helps when the artwork is really fantastic.
Well, it's funny because like part of the reason to do the book was, well, I wanted to write more. I wanted to write in like this kind of, you know, world similar to Savage Town. I wanted Gavin to have a book. So a lot of the reasons for making the book was to have a creative product. You know, had to have something, to work on something creative and have something like physical, finished, you know, something done at the end of it. And while it wasn't planned, I just kind of feel like a nice ripple effect of that is like you've got the same thing out of it as well. You know, like you've got it. I mean, because I know I've heard a lot of the kind of stuff that you were playing around with, but I don't know if you would have pushed your. And I'm not, you know, I don't sound like a prick here, but you know, I don't know if you would have pushed yourself to make something finished unless you had a reason to do it. Even though the reason,
I guarantee you, I wouldn't. I guarantee, absolutely, never been sure of anything in my life. I definitely wouldn't. I would have just kind of went, that's cool, and then thrown it up on SoundCloud or something, and never did it again.
Because it's easy when it's just you, you know. But when you have to, and you know, I don't mean answer to somebody else, but like I was on to you. If you could have said, look, man, I'm just not into it anymore. I don't want to do it, and I would have been like, bollocks. But that'd have been my problem. You know, you didn't owe me anything, but I think it's nice that, or it helps when somebody else, when you've somebody to when there's expectations by somebody else. Sorry?
Answer to.
Well, but yeah, you know what I mean, like, you know.
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally get that. I mean, it is the kick up the arse I kind of needed it, I guess. And if I do something else, I might do, but not for a while until lockdown finishes. But definitely, and I owe you a thank you for that, because, like, as you say, I'd been sitting up there going, here's 30 seconds of a bit of a song. But like getting 7-minute, 8-minute long songs was like something I never would have kind of gotten near.
Yeah, it's exactly. This has all just been an elaborate ruse to just get you to say thank you. You're welcome, Eric. You're welcome. God, I'm amazing.
Take it back.
No, you don't have to thank me. No, thank you, man, for doing it, because like I don't understand the work gone into it. Like when you were saying, "Oh, it needs to get mastered," and there's all these problems, I was just like, "Oh yeah, well, I mean, all right." Like I have no idea what would have got into it.
Either do I, Declan, it turns out.
Well, you know now, I guess. But yeah, I'm just delighted it all kind of worked out so well. And now I've been listening to the soundtrack more now. I'm doing more writing the last few weeks, and it's great writing music. Like you just stick it on, and it's just pure mood, you know.
Excellent. Yeah, no, a couple of artist friends of mine have kind of sent me messages, really nice messages, saying stuff like similar stuff to that, where they'd be in the studio working or whatever, and they just have it on in the background. So, I mean, that's fantastic. Really happy with that result.
Yeah,
Now,
Okay.
10% of all their sales from here on, we should be laughing.
That's I don't think I got anything down on contract. Are there any questions,
Yeah, if
Elaine?
I
Or?
could jump in with a couple of
Sure.
questions. So Aaron Abernathy asks, how do you write to a medium? This is for Eric, where there's no fixed pace that the reader will progress through it. It must be very different to writing for film or TV.
Yeah, definitely. And I think where I started with that, if you'll probably pick it up if you listen to the soundtrack, is that there's kind of usually like one core loop that goes on and on and on and on through the whole song, and then other bits kind of come in and go out at a different cadence. And it just the idea was to evolve the track through from start to finish without actually really developing it or going anywhere. So there's no kind of start, middle, and an end to it. It just kind of drifts through. Because that was something I was really aware of, is that like everyone's going to read this thing differently. If you try to guess that, if you try to kind of say, okay, this is the part where, you know, someone's going to read this panel, like you're never going to get it right. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be in the minority. So the idea really would be just kind of set the mood around it. And I think with having the track names like that, so they kind of signpost your way through the book, it kind of gives you a bit of a leeway to kind of go, well, this track is this general section of the book, and this track is this general section of the book. And as you go through, hopefully it makes sense when you listen and read.
Yeah, because you don't want to set it up where like you know, start on page 20 now, and you're like you know, like those things they sound
remember
fun,
those?
but
You'll know it is time to turn the page when you hear
Yeah.
the bell.
I love those things back in the day.
That's
They're-
the next project.
well, like they're fun in theory, but like having to actually try and figure it out would have killed the process of reading the actual book, which is you're not supposed to pause or stop or you know, you can control the pace, but you're stuck in the environment, and if like, you were pulled out for the music, you would be antithetical to the point of making it.
Absolutely, and I think if it was a book, you could just do a load of read throughs with different people and guesstimate. But because it's the artwork's so amazing, like you don't like people are going to stop and look at that, you know. So you got to take that in as well. So I think the only way to do it is kind of just subtly work around it.
Yeah, it was really nicely done. I don't know if we do have time for this, but someone's asked if you could compare and contrast Costello's versus the Queen's circa 2003. So 2 nightclubs there in Ennis and Limerick.
You'd never would have been to the Queen's, would you? Eric?
I haven't, no.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
I'm missing out.
No.
It's hard to say that you're missing out.
You liked the Queen's. You fit in the Queen's. The Queen's was never my spot.
That was from
I'm not sure how we
Daryl
should take
Feely. I
that.
don't know if I don't know how
yeah.
anyone would take that.
Yeah, I used to be in the school bus with Daryl.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the bus from Quinn out.
Well, how are you, Daryl?
But
And I worked with Daryl.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Where'd you work with him?
Nice.
I worked for a company called Avio with Daryl.
Was that in Limerick?
That was in the university out in New Wales somewhere.
Okay. I think Daryl's in Scotland now. I met him in Scotland last. They were there. I don't know if he's still there, or he's locked down there. But yeah, that is such a very specific question for one person that no one else is going to get.
I was reading it first. It says, "Love the soundtrack. Great idea to expand the book with it. Fair play to all involved." And then you finish with this, and I was like, I thought it was like comparing something, and I was like, wait, the Queen's, yeah. I know. So,
in fairness, you could compare the soundtrack to Costello's.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the Queen's was basically the biggest nightclub in Ennis. It's the only one now, as far as I know. It's the only place you can go after 12. But
going over now.
That's a good point. Was
They're all the same now.
Costello's
Empty.
was or is was I don't know whatever you're going to call it now, but was a very low rent nightclub.
Was it the one with the old man inside?
That's it, yeah,
Mhm.
Flan.
They took me there, yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean,
And carpets.
and yes, yeah, and still there.
Yeah,
Like
not
they
many
didn't.
nightclubs have carpets.
That's true. Yeah, and the like sticky
All the
kind of
best
flattened
ones.
ones. But yeah, I mean, I can still recite probably the set list of any night. It would have the Strokes last night. It would have um what was this? Modest Mouse's Float
Float
On.
on.
Yeah, like you knew what all the songs were going to be, just the order, or it would always have Rage Against the Machine. Uh, yeah, but there was something I know. Like I have some friends in Limerick who would like, they wouldn't go there now because they just got sick of it. But whenever I go back, I'd love to go there because it's just those were my nights out when I lived there. But yeah, they're
Yeah, I'm pretty
quite
sure.
different.
I'm pretty sure Limerick tilts on an axis at a certain point of the night and just leans in the door of Costello's. There's no way of avoiding it sometimes.
Yeah, true enough. But how are we for? Yeah, we still have another 10 minutes. Is there any other questions, Lane, or?
Not directly, no.
Okay.
Again, a lot of people not taking the piss, but just having a laugh. Daryl says, "How are you?"
Let's go, Daryl.
Such an Irish YouTube stream right now.
Yeah, we should just start saying hi to the people we know.
Yeah, shout out here and there. Sorry, I might have missed this earlier because I'm trying to look at comments while you lads are talking. But have you made a soundtrack before this one, Eric?
No. This is the first kind of foray into it. I'd made music before, and generally speaking, in the past while, it's always been instrumental music because I guess I like when I try to write lyrics, they sound really forced. So most of my things end up being instrumental. So this is the first kind of conscious effort to actually score something.
Okay, that's really cool. It turned out so well.
Well, yeah, you kind of been messing around with, because I remember you sent me some tracks that when we first started talking, you sent me some stuff on your SoundCloud that was like in that, the same genre at least.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it's definitely like as I picked it up and kind of gone through the process, I've definitely learned a lot about that, and definitely expanded kind of the range of instruments, even just like software you can get. So I think that's the thing, is that like that whole thing was recorded on gear that's probably less than £1,000 in a bedroom, usually quite late at night. But it's just so accessible now to make music and to do stuff like that there's really no reason to not give it a go,
And what is it you said? So guitars, like what instruments did you use?
So real life instruments, there's just a couple of guitars. A lot of I use this thing called an EBow, which is a thing for a guitar that it creates a magnetic field, so it creates infinite sustain. So you can just hold a note, put the EBow over the string, and it will keep the string vibrating. So a lot of those kind of swells you'd hear in the soundtrack are EBow tracks that I just recorded, like 10, 12, 15 tracks of different things to get different like tones, so you get a more rounded sound. And then that was the only real stuff. Some external kind of mic sounds of like wood breaking and stuff, and trees and leaves and stuff like that. Then a lot of it was done in Ableton.
Did you find those sounds, or did you like record them yourself?
A bit of both. So there's a couple of things that are like there's a car door sound that acts as the drum. So it's what track is it? But there's a car door sound that acts as a beat that goes through the song. It's actually the sound of my fiance's car that I recorded closing the door, and then put loads of different effects on it that makes that sound throughout the thing. So you think it's a drum, but it's actually a car door. So those are little bits like that nobody would pick up on except for me. But little nods like that, and then into Ableton, and then loads of different. You have a world of instruments at your disposal. Then
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's class. I just like the idea of you just like pottering around with the microphone with leaves. People going, "What the hell is that story?" Like, I'm
Yeah,
making
in a
music.
loincloth.
Sure you are, buddy.
Yeah. Sometimes it felt like that when you're sitting there in the dark over a computer trying to go, I need to get that sound, you know. Those leaves don't sound leavy enough.
It's like that. Did you ever see Walk Hard? It's John C. Reilly. It's a spoof movie of
Walk the line.
yeah, or all music biographies. But like he goes through like a Brian Wilson phase where he just like turns into a total lunatic. Like it's actually it's I don't know. Not a lot of people have seen it. I think it's class. But
I could see how that could happen.
yeah, but especially
I think you can get really.
Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, I think you can get really kind of like into the weeds on things like that. I could easily see how, like I didn't go full Brian Wilson on it, but there was times.
Especially with when you were finishing it during the, because you finished it when after the virus kind of hit, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I actually like I had the virus, which was shit, but thankfully I was very very lucky in that I was able to fight it and stuff. So, and I was like, okay, at least I can make something of it. And then like I didn't have any energy to do anything, so I was just lying there thinking about it rather than
because
actually recording.
I remember us texting you and you had the virus. I'm like, you lazy git. No.
Yeah, 2 weeks lying up.
Yeah, actually, even at that, it kind of worked out weirdly because you were out for 2 weeks and then the book was delayed too. So it's mad, all these different things that like you try plan and
It all
accommodate
worked
for.
out except that he had the virus. Which was
Yeah, well, I'm fine. That's the important thing now.
Yeah.
No, but
That's
like,
the
yeah,
main
I mean
thing.
that sucked, of course. But like, that's what I'm saying is like all these different like things worked out in a weird way, despite X going wrong or this getting delayed. It's like, and you're well, of course. That's also a concern.
Yeah.
But was it yeah, do any yeah, we've just a few minutes left if there's any other questions.
Yeah, aside from the Pine Barrens, were there any other musical if I could even read, any other musical influences that inspired the soundtrack? Other than car doors and Pine Barrens.
I think early on in the process I set up a collaborative playlist. I set it up as collaborative. I'm not sure if Declan added any songs to it.
I
but
did.
Definitely gave feedback. Did you?
I did.
You did. Sorry,
I did.
I wronged
yeah,
you.
it took me a while
I
though.
wronged you.
No, it did. It did take me a while.
Yeah. But I think it was just like if I listen to those now, I'm not even sure it sounds like those. But it was kind of like just to get an idea of even like the structure or the instrumentation of stuff that could suit. So early on, that was kind of important. But as it went through, it just kind of, as I say, they kind of happened really naturally. And there was one track that I could only describe it as a spaghetti western. I think I called it to you.
Yeah,
is that it kind of has the sound of like the old kind of Ennio Morricone kind of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly kind of sound, but it's much cheaper to make and doesn't have an orchestra. But it was that kind of vibe, and I think there was moments like that through it that like it was like this is the kind of mood for the song. What do I make it with?
Well, like
so
even
weird bells and stuff.
Even in response to like say, I didn't have much to say back because all the stuff you were saying was class. Like all the inspirations and the kind of like I feel like I was bad at like offering feedback because everything you did I just thought was class. I think the only thing we did have a shared playlist and I added some Nick Cave, Warren Ellis bits from their soundtrack work because I just love that stuff and one of the tracks you have in there definitely leaned more in there as well. So I was happy, because it's just like what those soundtracks, they're all kind of a little desolate, a little intense, but quite tender, but you're already in that kind of bracket anyway, so there wasn't really a whole much for me to say. Also, like you were doing all the work, so it's not, unless you were going off in a mad direction, there's not really much I can be going like, no, this isn't my vision. What's your vision?
Yeah. Actually, on the subject of composers, I found out a really weird fact yesterday. Is that, do you remember the 80s TV show Going for Gold?
Oh, yeah, I think you Yeah, go on anyway. I think I know what this is. I think I saw it on your Instagram, maybe.
Hans Zimmer wrote that theme tune.
That's it. Yeah, that's mad. Or wait,
It's bizarre.
I've another one. Somebody told me, do you know, is it the lead singer or the lead guitarist of Journey is John Williams' son?
Who's John Williams?
He did all the soundtrack for all the Star Wars movies.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll look it up. I might be.
The guitarist is his son.
I think it's either the guitarist or the lead singer. A friend of mine told me that now, so I'm misremembering slightly. But you look it up. But yeah, apparently, like, the guy is amazing, but like nobody knew he was John Williams' son. I have to Google that now just to make sure I'm not completely full of or my friend, it was Mooney who told me, so it could have been complete nonsense. But
That was a lie. So
oh, probably. But sure, look, man. Sure, look. It's 7:30 now, man. I'll let you off. Thanks for coming in and chatting. Because we haven't even really gotten to talk much about it, like in person to person. So yeah, it was
virus.
yeah. How do you say that now? How do you? I don't even remember what the term is.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, it's just a virus. It'll do. You know, everyone knows what you're talking about.
Listen,
but
thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, man, thank you.
Congratulations on the book. It's fantastic.
Thanks, man, and thanks for everything put into the soundtrack, man. I love it.
Cool. Catch you next time.
All right, man.
Take care.
Take it easy.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Oh dear.
So next up we have Mr. Clayton joining in right now.
Oh, Mr. Clayton. Oh man, I'm glad this stops in half an hour. I'm wrecked. Oh.
Is he joining there? I have two requests here now.
Okay. He knows it's on anyways. Oh, there he is.
There we go. We made it.
Yeah, just a little bit more to go. But is this all torture for you? Like
no,
people?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. As long as other people are talking and not me.
No, you're fine. I'm just going to shout at you, and I can, if I need to.
Grand.
Okay,
I'm glad you like the soundtrack though.
Oh yeah, it's really cool. Clayton should be. Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, Clayton, how's it going, man?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you
for
so
joining me on the Bog Cast. Thank you very much.
He stole my own stream, the son of a bitch.
It is very good to see you, Declan Shelby.
Yeah.
How long has it been? What have you been up to?
Oh man, well, I saw you in New York Comic Con the last time I saw you, but it had been
that was 30 years ago.
34 years ago.
Oh my God.
No, yeah, that was
the ravages of time.
Well, even then, it had been a while since I'd seen you before that. Even I would say, but
30 years.
30 years. But yeah, how are you keeping? I assume you're still plenty busy.
Yes, not as busy as I usually am, but I'm doing good, but not half as good as Bog Bodies, the new graphic novel from the writer of Savage Town and Image Comics.
You know,
same publisher that brought you Savage Town.
I have
Injection.
I have all the books.
And the Wicked and the Divine.
I have all the books here. I was gonna do this off my laptop, but the stream was shite, so I had all the books ready to do that. But totally forgot. And I had all these tweets loaded up for every person that came on. But sure, when you're in the middle of it, your brain just goes soft. I'm going to do, you know what? I'm going to do it for you right now, Caitlin.
I don't want my brain to go soft. What have you pulled me into? I know it's my show, but I still feel coerced.
This is the Bogcast. I should have called it Bogcast.
I thought you did. Where did I get it from?
No, I thought of BogCon was my first thought, and I realized that's terrible. So
it's too soon. We can't go to con.
Exactly, everyone's too sore about it. So like, are you? Yeah, I was asking you busy, but like, I guess what are you busy on at the moment? Because a lot of the like paid. Well, no, DC are still going strong, aren't they?
Yeah, my DC workload has not changed. They even have me working on stuff that hasn't been announced yet. That doesn't theoretically come out until way later this year.
Oh, that's
it's
great.
Fun.
Yeah, great.
You're taking care of me. Thank you guys. You look like you're on the moon or something.
Well, I have this is the Bog Buddies cover. It's just the door to a toilet behind me, so I didn't think there was really anybody needed to see that. I like, but
It's
if I
honest though.
but if I walk away from the screen for like 5 minutes, you know, or I've gone.
It is
Well, if you go through the
body.
door,
Yeah, Bog Buddies.
good.
I'm putting the bog in Bog Buddies. Yeah.
Huh.
But
Bug buddies, more like.
of course, this all falls apart in the last act. But
I'm the last act.
well, you're. I would say the penultimate. No, penultimate is the second last. So you're the ultimate.
I like the sound of that better.
Yeah.
Like
But,
the canceled line of comic books.
Oh yes, yeah. That well, they were at the beginning. They were great. Well, actually, I shouldn't really say pass comment on anything, should I? They were all great all the time. Everybody is amazing at what they do, and I'm not casting aspersions on anybody's work. Whew,
Yeah,
okay,
peaks and valleys.
get that done. But what was it? Yeah. So did you get your comps of the book?
Oh yes.
What-
I
what you-
got all 5 of them.
Okay, good. What did you think? I mean, I know you worked in the book, but like, do you get anything out of seeing stuff in print?
Let's find out.
Okay, so you're gonna start doing a live reading of of the book.
Page 1. Good evening. Welcome back to 6-1 News. What I
Actually-
like about this book is that it taught me how to correctly pronounce Neve. Before I was saying or whatever.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I don't speak Irish.
Well, I wanted to be an Irish name, but yeah, that is the problem with Irish. Like, guys' names, like Declan's an Irish name, but it's not
Yeah.
it's not the same as like Siobhan or Quiva or yeah, it's girls' names. Sinead. I think Irish.
Quiva sounds 100% made up to my American ears.
Yeah.
That's like a
Do you
name
wanna
that we
hear how
would
it's
see on the math
spelled?
test.
Yes, but
That's CAIMHE.
Wow.
yeah,
What
Yeah.
a beautiful language.
Yeah.
But
What a confusing time.
But that's it. I actually really like those names. I think they're really pretty. But like, yeah, when you spell them to people, they're like, "Are you having a stroke or something?"
Mhm.
But no, yeah, because I just like how the book turned out in print. Like, I still like things to be printed. You know.
I think it does look, it looks just like it looked on the screen. So I guess everyone's monitors were calibrated correctly.
I guess so.
And usually stuff prints kind of dark, especially, well, it's not fair to cast like a full blame on image. Like it happens with everybody on different books, depending on which printer this used, but it looks how it looked while I was working on it. And that's most impressive.
Yeah. Well, I was
Way
a
to
little.
go. Way to go, Becca.
I was a little worried with the cover because it is dark. Like the drawing is grey wash before I even colored it, so there's K in the color as well. Plus the cover stock is uncoated, so it kind of soaks up a lot of black. So I was worried it would go too dark, but it went a little dark, but it was a dark I was prepared for. You know, I didn't want that face to be very, very visible. I wanted to be kind of hidden in behind the logo, and I did the spot gloss on the logo. I'm just so happy with the cover. Forget about the
It looks
writing.
good. I think, well, looking at it compared to what's behind you, there's more magenta in the cover, but I think that works for it. It gives it a nice little contrast.
Yeah, I think
And yeah,
this is the
and
original
face does
version.
look, yeah, and the face looks fadier on the cover.
Yeah, I
than
did
in
put
the
I did put
original.
more magenta in the face, and I did there's a little fog breath on the. This is so weird. There's a little fog breath on the characters in the cover that isn't in this image.
Oh yeah,
So this is the original version of the cover, but I was trying to find an image last minute because, like I said, I was going to do it off the laptop, and I had all my fancy, nice books behind me, so I looked all proper. And then just as I was doing, I was like, "No, this is not going to work, and it's going to be a complete disaster. Get out, get out, get out!" So yeah, I pulled it together in the end. But oh man, yeah. So what I got to ask as regards the book, what made you want to do it? Because like you're plenty busy doing book. Like, what are you're doing Batman still, aren't you? Justice League.
Yep. Not just I'm off at Justice League. I'm
Okay.
doing at DC. I'm doing Aquaman, Strange Adventures, Jimmy Olsen, Batman and the Outsiders, and Superman Giant or Superman Man of Tomorrow, whatever they're calling it now, the Walmart book.
Yeah.
And digital book, and the occasional anthology story and stuff I can't talk about yet.
Sure. Is it with the shutdown? Is it giving you a bit more free time that you hadn't originally planned for?
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like that's...
Thank God for this pandemic that's killed 100,000 Americans.
Yeah, I mean, there's a silver lining, right?
Yep.
But no, I mean,
Always look on the bright side of life.
I mean, not to sound...
I'm not going to whistle into the mic.
But not to sound bad, but like, it's a bad thing, of course, but like there has been some nice things to take from it. Because I mean, look, what else can you do? You can't,
and my income has taken a hit because aside from DC, things have been a lot squiffier, and it's been a little bit stressful getting realigning all my finances to the new reality. But on the whole, I'm doing good and I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, no, I can pay rent in a few days, and now I know I can pay the next month rent. I wasn't sure about that just yet, but now I'm fine.
That's
now.
good.
Yeah,
I'm happy to hear that.
That's all good. But what was it? But yeah, what did make you want to do Bog Bodies? Because you'd help me out by doing Savage Town, so it's not like you owed me anything. You could have taken better paid work elsewhere, I'm sure.
Well, you asked me to do it, and I thought, sure.
The end.
We've ironed out the wrinkles. I know what to expect here. I will say yes to doing this book with my friend.
Cool. Thank you, man.
That's it.
Okay. Well, I thought that it at least was a little easier because there was a lot of very specific limerick, sayings and slang words that there's no way you'd know what those are. So it would have just sounded like you're lettering gobbledygook. But I think this book is a little more streamlined because it still has that Irish accent, but it's just a little bit more. It's less specific, say. So I felt I did a better. I wanted to do a more consistent job for you.
Well, it showed. I feel like it was a good thing we had Savage Town before this because we did iron out a lot of the wrinkles and which parts of the Irish accent we wished to flourish in the dialogue. And so Bog Bodies was a much smoother process because we already knew we want to say yeah instead of you, or use an apostrophe here instead of a G, etc. We'd already figured out the rules.
Yeah. And are there any other books that you do that are that have specific rules like that?
Nowhere near as tight as this. Bitter Root kind of has that, but it's not quite as extreme because we're going for a specific 1920s black dialect. So, but it's not even close. You're the king of the accents in the Clayton books.
I'll take that.
Maybe if I do more Chris Claremont books, that'll change.
God, no. Not with the Irish bits anyway. I actually was doing some research and I read the Banshee, the issue of X-Men where they go to Ireland and Banshee has a castle and there are, not shitting you, Elaine, there's a bunch of leprechauns underneath the castle.
Yeah.
Which I didn't mind. Well, I did, but they're all the leprechauns' names were actual Irish names like Tyke and stuff. I'm like, this actually isn't badly researched because all the names are legit, but there's no such thing as leprechauns, and this is slightly offensive.
Well, hang on, there was a Banshee as well, so why was that offensive?
Well, no, because he wasn't a Banshee. His code name was Banshee. He's like a man, so it wasn't a woman Banshee. It was there's
okay, but I mean, you're hardly living in a world of factual beings.
No, true, but to go to Ireland and have literally have leprechauns there is just
What else are they going to have? Bacon and cabbage flying out at them.
That would have been great. And potatoes.
I'm making a note of that.
It's annoying, but it makes sense,
cabbage. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, maybe.
That was a milestone issue. Isn't that the first issue where we heard Wolverine called Logan?
I think so. Yeah, somebody's mentioned that the other day. I didn't realize.
And the leprechauns knew that for some reason, and that's never explained.
Maybe there's a story there. I'm going to pitch Marvel.
Bring it back.
Background.
Let's tie up that thread.
Yeah. There's a wide tapestry.
50-year-old thread.
Oh God. But
wasn't Banshee originally going to be a woman? And they did. I think I read something about this once, where Banshee was going to be a woman, but they decided we really don't want to have a woman be enslaved by a supervillain named Ogre, so we're going to make her an old man instead.
I mean, makes I hadn't heard that actually. I mean, it would make more sense if you're going to have a character called Banshee that it would be a woman, because Banshee is specifically like a female spirit.
Yeah.
But
I've read my Hellboy. I know what a banshee is.
fair enough. Well, not everybody does. But I'd never heard that. But I mean, you go deep into the old X-Men stuff.
Yeah, I get bored easily.
You just got to find all the backgrounds.
Yeah, well, I was done with Bog Bodies. I needed something to do.
I need to go back to the source.
We lettered it too quickly. That was the problem.
Did we? I mean,
I would
yeah.
have more useful knowledge if it
Well, I
wasn't
guess
for Bog Bodies and its speed.
It's well, I do plan on doing another one at some stage. If Bog Bodies does well enough, I'd like to do another Irish crime type book. But
Cool.
But yeah, it's just down to how this does, really. I mean, I've tried it before, and I'm trying it with this. Like, if it doesn't do well, then like I think I'll just have to, admit defeat. But I don't know. I've got a good feeling about it, though. I'm like, anyone I sent it to have said really nice things, and beyond, like, Warren gave me a nice quote, but then like said something very complimentary privately that I'm like, Warren Ellis, he's not going to compliment me unless he really barely registers my existence in generally. So why would he pay me a compliment? And that's kind of weird when you send it to people like you respect and they say nice things about it. You're like, man, maybe this is actually good. It's so hard to know,
Did you
It
read
is
that?
good, like.
Oh, thanks, Lane. Cheers. And I know you wouldn't say it unless it actually was. But sorry, Clayton, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, did you read that oral history of the Warren Ellis forums on Comics Beat from yesterday?
No,
or the day before.
No, I haven't.
It was pretty good, but like the Warren in that story sounds just like the Warren you just described.
Well,
I think that's just his way.
It's just his way. Yeah, no. Well, all the stories of him being a teddy bear as well are absolutely true, because he's been like brilliant. But were there any questions, by the way? Just in case there's any lettering specific questions, I'm not sure if anybody.
You work on so many books, Clayton. Was there anything different about this book that you enjoyed?
The accents. I think what I enjoyed the most about this book was that I already knew how to do it, because we'd already ironed out all the kinks on Savage Town, not just with the accents, but with what Declan wants in a lettering style. In Savage Town, he specifically wanted these sort of not quite rounded rectangle balloons, but they still had like an almost rectangular shape instead of a more traditional oval shaped balloon. And he also wants his tails done a specific way. So we figured all that out within the first 1 or 2 chapters of Savage Town. And then here in Bog Bodies, I just used a very specific lettering technique called Make Declan Happy, and did all the stuff that I'd done before. So like that, it was an easy job, and I already knew I was like essentially giving the client what they wanted. I enjoyed that part of it. It's good to feel confident.
What I loved was because I basically just said to you, just do exactly what we did in Savage Town, because I wanted to feel, the books are connected very lightly, but they are connected, and I wanted it to slightly like unconsciously feel like that way. So if the lettering is the same, I think that it keeps you in that same world. But I like that you changed the actual font, though, to something that worked with Gavin's line work a bit better. Because when you suggested, I'm like, no, there's no need to go to that trouble. But then when you did it, I was like, yeah, that's really nice. It's very subtle. Like I haven't actually. I must open both books and see, because I know they are different, but it's the same feeling, but just more specific to the line work of the artist. I just thought that was a really cool choice you made, that you didn't have to. You could have just gone with it.
The name of the font in Bog Bodies, by the way, is blah blah blah.
I think it is
Comic Craft.
No, it is actually, isn't it?
Is it really?
Yeah. So there
I
you go.
double checked before I came on in case the question came up, and so I'm going to answer it before somebody asks.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's funny.
And I think I used Astronauts in Trouble. Wait, no, I didn't.
No, that was one of the ones. That was one of the ones you sent me. That was one of the options, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, I forget the one I used on Savage Town, but I know I used True Believer for the posh sounding guy in Savage Town because he had to sound fancy.
Yeah, exactly. I love that one. Yeah, there's an English guy in the middle of all these Limerick fellas, and I think it was Sebastian Gerner who suggested it, but I love that, like, no matter where you're from, Ireland or or wherever you're from, and you feel like you're in that world. When you hear a British person speak, they sound like a posh twat. You know?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things in the book.
Even if they're from the north.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're not. They're not. Well, I think Aaron's been commenting. He's from the north. I think even he'd agree. But with the posh,
Hang
the
on,
posh
I'll
Brits.
let you know. He'll definitely say some things now for sure. What do different writers want in a lettering style from you, or general types of stuff? Since you mentioned Deck had specific stuff.
It depends on the writer. There are some writers who work with who are really in love with specific fonts, and no matter what the art looks like, they want me to use that font specifically on all of their projects. Like Chuck Brown and Kyle Higgins both have their pet fonts, and no matter what I present to them, they always choose their two pet fonts specifically. Other than that, it's pretty variable. They just want the lettering to blend into the art, and sometimes some writers or artists will have specific visions for their books. For Die, for instance, another book published by Image Comics LLC, Portland, Oregon. Kieran Gillen specifically wanted an upper and lowercase font because it's a book that's very seated in literature, especially fantasy literature, and he thought an upper and lowercase font would help convey that, and it does. And we went through 5 or 6 upper lowercase fonts. I think I tried blah 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 on that one too. We ended up going with Face Front, which I think was the right choice.
When you say upper lowercase, you mean like one that has both.
Yeah.
Whereas like traditionally comic books would be all uppercase.
Correct.
Just for those who
yeah.
Thank
you for bringing that up.
I personally like upper lowercase just because I think you can play a little bit more when you're using capital. I think you can just fit a little bit.
We do that in Bog Bodies.
Yeah, like there's things that are emphasized, there's things that are, because of the way we talk. I kind of wanted to play with that, but I think it fits a little bit more dialogue into a balloon. I mean, you probably know if that is the case or not, but
so it's not. But
it's just, but it's I guess it's the illusion of it then.
I guess so, but like when it comes to like laying out a font technically in Adobe Illustrator, no, lowercase fonts usually have to be bigger and more space has to be laid out in between them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's just a thing. Like it does look smaller and it does look like it gives more space economy, but in reality it doesn't. Like that's partly why all caps fonts are favored, but honestly, I can go either way. My understanding is mixed case fonts are universally easier to read.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like if you're dealing with an extremely dialogue heavy writer, you want to pitch for all caps just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, fair enough. Is there anything else there?
Yeah, another question here. Would working with Irish cadence and colloquialisms impact how you'd approach lettering Irish characters in the future?
If requested.
Okay. And what are the most frustrating aspects of lettering?
Rewrites.
Oh, I would imagine. Would it not be like, say, the uppercase and lowercase? You know, so yeah, so it was. I was uppercase, lowercase, but I wrote it knowing that. Are there times where somebody they don't know what they're going for? So, like it's like I think I remember hearing, maybe it wasn't you, but somebody else complaining, but like bars on the high bars on eyes, or like you can't just take a text and change it from uppercase to lowercase. You need to retype all that out.
Well, there's a way around that. If you use a fine change tool and deduce what crossbar I looks like in that font, you can get around that pretty easily.
Okay.
But
ultimately,
sure,
rewrites.
That's annoying. Like, say, like maybe if someone is doing a book with mixed casing, but they don't know what type of emphasis they want, like in an all caps book, if someone wants a specific word emphasized, you would just bold italicize it. But like, say if you get a book that's in mixed case and the emphasized word is just in all caps, like I don't know what I'm supposed to do necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's supposed to stay in all caps or if it's supposed to be or if the casing is supposed to be corrected and then bold italicized. it's not that big of a deal. There are a couple of writers who I work with who do that, but it's fine because they're just so great to work with otherwise that I don't make a stink of it.
Mhm.
So, and like if you're working with specific publishers, they just don't want stuff like that, period. And that's extra work you got to do and so on. I guess communication is key. Aside from rewrites, but like basic formatting stuff like that, it's all fine. Although, like, if you're working in a book that's supposed to be mixed case and someone sends you a script that's in all caps, that's an enormous problem and it has to be dealt with immediately. There have been some creators in the past, like, I've had pretty good luck with this, where if I'm doing a mixed case book, writers will adhere to that rule. But some of my peers have worked with writers in the past where a book was supposed to be a mixed case. They got the book in all caps and they had to reformat the entire thing. And eventually they put their foot down and said, no, this has to be done correctly the first time because I'm not being compensated for this.
Fair dues. Do anything else, Lane? Or?
No, we're not right now.
Okay.
How many?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. How many lettering passes would you do on average for a project?
I guess 3.
Well, I'd say from writing standpoint, from having like learned writing and doing it at some companies, if you're doing it right, like I'll have done a lettering draft of the script for the letterer, so that gives me a chance. If I want to make a change, I can do it before it even gets to the letterer, which I think ideally would be the case for you, Clayton. So, you don't want to letter it and then having to re-letter it. So.
Yeah,
but
that's what I mean when I say rewrites.
Yeah, so
for the most part, like most of the writers I work with are really good about that.
Yeah, like I tend to do a rewrite when I'm doing lettering drafts. Like not a huge one, but I'll definitely change stuff. But it hasn't been in your hands yet, so it's fine. But but when you do get it, there are times where you need to go do as many as 3 drafts.
Well, 3 drafts is the average, and that's counting the first pass where I just do all the initial lettering, and those in the following 2 passes, usually just the first one is rewrites, but it's also notes from proofreading.
Sure.
Like this I needs to be capitalized, or this there should be there, etc. And that's usually what the 3rd pass is too, and that'll typically take me 5 to 10 minutes, and it's usually just grammatical stuff, add a comma.
Actually, I'm curious. Out of curiosity, when you're lettering stuff and you see something you think looks wrong, will you just go with it because there's no point in you making a decision on something because it could only cause a problem down the line?
If I see a problem, I'll just fix it myself, if that's what you mean.
No, because I was curious, like if it would be a case of like it's like Anchorman, where he's going to say exactly what's on the screen. Like where because I like if I was doing it, I'd be worried if I'm changing this, am I changing it right, or am I actually, is it supposed to be wrong? Like something like Savage Town where it's deliberately wrong,
And that happens sometimes where like you'll notice a grammatical error, but if it's a grammatical error that sounds like a way a person would talk, I'll just leave it.
Sure.
But if it's something like there's a comma missing or this word is actually spelled wrong, I'll just go ahead and fix it. It's best to just fix stuff like that as soon as possible because you never know how long everything else is going to take. And if the book is 5 minutes away from missing its deadline, like it sucks to try to go through and correct all these spelling errors and stuff when the clock is ticking. Best to just get it all done as soon as possible so you're not up against the gun later on.
Fair enough, man. Jesus, that's half an hour gone now. These things are flying by. I tried to schedule like half hours so that the conversation wouldn't dry up, but I'm finding that like just
it's the opposite.
Well, yeah, it's just that things are getting going and then it's just cut out. But then if we did it longer, then we'd be here for the night.
Did you find yourself imitating an Irish accent when you were lettering?
Not when lettering. I will find myself imitating an Irish accent after I've talked to Declan over Skype or the phone. And then my sister will call me a wanker or whatever the American equivalent is.
Good.
Not in lettering, but very much so in real life.
My sister will do that too, except that I am actually speaking my accent. just let me know when I'm being a wanker.
No harm.
Yeah, it's good.
Our sisters have something in common.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have someone to keep you grounded. But Man, look, I'm going to let you off because I have to bring Gavin back in before we wrap up in 2 minutes. But let's actually catch up in a non-streaming capacity.
I would love to.
Excellent. All right, man.
Nice to meet you, Clayton. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, thanks, man.
After
Thanks
all this time, hearing of the legendary Elaine Shalvey.
or
Yeah.
the Elaine Shalvey, as you heard her to be known.
The Elaine.
Yeah.
The.
Yeah, thanks a million, man. Cheers.
Yeah,
Take
care,
care.
buddy.
See you, man.
Bye.
Does Gavin know he has to come back in?
Yeah, I told him he'd be coming back in at 8, so he has the invite. Actually, is there a way to let him know?
I can just send it through again.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, just give the nudge. We'll see where he is. Although I need to pick a question to.
Yeah, I've got them all here.
Oh, do you? Yeah, was there any that stood out to you?
There's a couple of good ones, yeah. Sorry, I'm just.
Oh, you're
trying to
fine.
find this one.
Have you learnt much about comics in this magical 3 hours?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about lettering.
Yeah, not many people do. Even me, I mean, I know a bit because I did a little bit of it when I did that Freak Show book. I lettered that and I hated it. Hated it.
Yeah.
It was good to do though.
Why?
It's just a lot of like just moving text around, and sometimes there isn't really because the artist, who was me, didn't leave enough room for things. I mean, that's why it was good to do, because it taught me to leave room for stuff for anything else I drew afterwards. I did it by hand first because lettering used to all be done by hand, and that it took me a day to do it. It took me a day to draw it and a day just to put the lettering in. And then when I started doing it on Illustrator, maybe it was just because I was in front of a computer a lot. But I mean, I'm in front of a computer now all the time anyway.
Yeah.
But also text just kind of, it happens to me with writing sometimes. I always have to do a couple of spell checks because I just don't see text. When I write blocks of text, I just find it really hard to kind of see the words as words, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at them as design shapes or what have you. But
Weird.
It is weird.
Do you have a specific page in mind that you got from Gavin? Thought, yeah, I definitely chose the right artist.
Oh, that's a good question.
Because Gavin should be in now again, by the way.
Page. 1 second. I grabbed the book. I left it over here. There we go. It would have happened early because I was really happy from the start. Page 2 was actually the first page of the pitch. It's the shot of Dublin. Oh, there he is. I was complimenting you. So you're just going to deal with it. It's the shot
off your mic.
It's the shot of Dublin and then Killian in the room. Like all the attention to detail on the stuff on the table, the background, the face in that last panel. Because that's it. It's a okay.
See,
there you go.
Shut off.
There you go. So there's a shot of Dublin and then Killian and a close up of him, and I love that face. Remember when I saw that face, I was like, "Oh man, that's a deadly face." Because lads who look like that,
One of the questions that came in early on actually was asking if Gavin had based any of the characters on people he knew. But I guess that's a common question for artists.
Oh, I can't hear you, Gavin. You need to turn your microphone on, I think. If you go button in the left-hand corner.
Left, let's see.
Uh-oh.
You can draw. You can write it.
Yeah.
Draw the
Yeah, give a detailed answers regarding.
Yeah, like John Conroy.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it? Yeah. Did you get no look out of that button in the bottom left-hand corner? No, because it looks like you can. It sounds like you've muted yourself, but it might just not be working. Right, there you are.
There he goes. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. No, I think I was switched on to the wrong mic.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
All right.
You're grand.
But yeah, it wasn't based on anybody you knew, or
No, like just not intentionally, you know, but just Kino. He just kind of ended up kind of looking like my granddad a bit, you know.
oh yeah,
Really?
Yeah. It just I don't know, it just happens like. But then the rest of the characters are really kind of based on just kind of like an amalgamation of people you see about town or whatever, you know, or kind of like a general.
yeah. Like I kind of wrote Jerry as a kind of a Brendan Gleeson type. I might have said that to you as well. Like,
oh yeah, it's definitely like, you know, I think Mike Starr was like another inspiration for Kino. But yeah, definitely big kind of Brendan Gleeson vibes, you know. I was just looking at the general for him as well. I think it's more kind of the girth, you know, or that kind of like that he just kind of has that kind of big frame, you know.
Well, it's where like they all. I mean, I think it's probably your background in animation for the character designs. Like none of them look like each other, which is important.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and yeah, you just. It's like I said. If I had done it, I think I would have done a wonderful job. But like you pushed the characters further than I think I would have, which for me is a good lesson to learn too. Like it keeps me on my toes, you know. But no, I love just that first shot of Killian is to answer the question. Was when I went, that's it, because I just thought it was such a great. It's like it's both mood and cartooning. There's some people who go and do animation and their work is so cartooned it loses any kind of added mood. It's just like a pure line drawing, but it just this just felt like it was like right out of Stray Bullets or something.
Yeah, well, that's definitely for me. That's like one of the biggest challenges, you know, for like when I started making more comics, you know, and from storyboarding and stuff, just having that really stiff line. And it's kind of like because animation, you know, is usually so full of life, you know, but kind of ironically, that once you kind of bring that to comics, that like kind of stiff kind of outline style, you know, it just becomes
I mean,
really stiff, you know?
I'm glad you said that as somebody who does animation, because I never did animation, and it's something I'd say I've noticed, but it's like something that's kind of occurred to me, but I have no idea why that happens, and I'm sure there's some people who'd be annoyed to hear that, but I just do see. Maybe it's because everyone's just working with digital tools all the time, and they start drawing comics. It's the same, but I just feel there's more. Your line needs to be a lot more considered when you're drawing comics, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just having that variation, you know, and like you spend kind of a lot of time when you're studying animation to kind of get rid of that variation.
Well, it makes sense for that medium.
Yeah, for the consistency, you know. But yeah, just for me, it just kind of deadens. But I don't know. I mean, like it's certainly not a, you know, I mean, just kind of, I mean, the Lynn Claire style of comics and stuff, you know, but you really have to have a lot of other different kind of tools at your disposal if you're gonna do that, you know. But just for me personally, like it's just you kind of realize like this really isn't, if you start doing something in animation style, like it's not it just isn't.
I know if I'm wrong, but it feels like it's missing a weight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to create depth and stuff with that as well, it's just because again, like you know, your lines might all just be the same, you know.
So it's nice. Yeah, it's nice to hear it articulated by somebody who actually knows the medium. But how are we? Did you pick out a question that you thought was one of the best ones?
I've got two that I'd like to ask you both, and then you can choose between you which one is the best.
Okay.
So Gav, you've worked from a script you had to adapt, a script written for you, and scripts you wrote yourself. What have you taken from, and how different is your process for each?
I think like adapting scripts is a great like introduction to writing, you know, because the kind of basic structure there is there for the story and dialogue and stuff, but it's you're transitioning it to a different medium, you know, from, well, in this case, from a book to a comic book. So it's just it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of very similar to like what me and Deb were saying earlier about like certain scripts having a prose style to them that you have to interpret. You know, so it's very much kind of the same process. You know, you just have to move stuff around and figure out how stuff is gonna flow visually. You know, whereas working with writers, it's, I mean, again, you know, it was great with the script for Bog Buddies because Deck's an artist, and you have having that. You know, having that knowledge there is just, it makes the experience just much more enjoyable, you know, and just flow much better. Whereas definitely some scripts have gotten where it's just kind of hard to, it's just much more difficult to figure that out. Now with writing for myself, it's like kind of recently, like the stuff I've been doing, I've just been kind of doing it like as I go, you know, and writing as I go and changing it.
Are you writing those, or are you like? Because some people ask if because I'm writing and drawing something for Marvel at the moment, and I just did the layouts last night, and it just flew because I spent like a week working on the script, and like, you know, I've got images in my head, but I don't have them on paper; they're just in my head, and I know what they're going to be when I do draw them, but I don't draw them first. I only draw them when I'm doing the layout, and the layout just flows because I already know what's in my head. Something really, really enjoyable about that I like. It's not the same as taking a script and solving the puzzle of how to make it look visual, because it's processed differently. But do you, when you're writing, do you just write script or do you doodle first?
Yeah, like, I mean, last year I was writing a script, you know, and I wrote pretty much the whole. It was like a 60-page script, and I wrote pretty much the full thing. I was like, I'm gonna, you know, write this whole script. I'm gonna format it. I'm gonna do all that before I jump on to doing thumbnails or anything. And I think this is a huge mistake, you know, because I think that's not really how I think. You know, I think I should have approached it more like with like nearly all the comics I've written before then. Like I was writing and drawing at the same time. You know, figuring out the pages, figuring out the dialogue, where the dialogue would go. And it's a much more organic process. Whereas
you see, I don't think I can do that, because if I shift between both, it kind of derails me. Whereas, like I said, I know the images in my head, so I drew out the images last night that I've had in my head for the last week. They didn't disappear, you know what I mean? I didn't need to get them on the sketchbook but first. And also, I feel if I this is going to sound stupid, but if I re-sketch it in the layout after having already drawn it, I'll feel like I'll lose something. Drawing it again. So I try and keep it all ready until I have like a proper script written. Now, I mean, it's different for everybody. And clearly, you know, but for me, I feel like I need to get the script down first, and then I'll take that, and it just kind of flows. So it's weird. I know the question wasn't for me, but I naturally made it about myself.
No, like I think that's I think it's totally, you know, depends on the artist, you know, and for me, like it's definitely a matter of drawing and writing, you know, in the one go. And I found it, you know, that break that you mentioned, you know, it's like you can't. There's like it derails you, you know. You have to like switch, you know, kind of flip a switch or whatever. Yes, for me, like I think I need to kind of see it all sort of take form, and I can kind of move panels around and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And even if it's not like, you know, because your thumbnails are really, you know, you do these really lovely tight thumbnails, whereas mine are like.
I'm trying to see, I can't show what I've just been working on, but these are all cover designs, but trying to see if there's any story. Well, there you go, as you can see.
Yeah, like that's insane, you know, to me.
Yeah, no, those are just covers, but I do the same for. Well, I feel like I just kind of iron out any problems that there are going to be. Wait, are they? Actually, I can show you this. Okay, this is a page. What? Attack of the sketchbooks. This is so I just did a short story for Quarantine Comics. So you can see that's the first page.
Yeah.
You know, so but yeah, I do. This is
No.
ridiculous. There we go.
The background is in the front of you.
Yeah, well,
Anyway, we get the idea.
yeah. So I do work them out because I find I try and like nail down all the problems in the layouts so that once it gets to drawing, I don't need to worry about this panel's too close to his head or I should have moved this there. It's like it's like all the problem solving is done, so I don't need to worry about some disaster on the page.
Yeah. I mean, I can show you a page of my thumbnails, which is just like literally.
The page,
you know.
the page literally moved, Gavin. So I get like.
Oh right, sorry.
You torn half it out.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like it's just
yeah.
like it's just all over the place, you know.
Well, I mean,
like, I know what it is, you know. So that's the main thing.
Like, imagine, so like the layouts you're seeing there, I actually pencil they start out looking like that. I just do them in set boxes, and I kind of half pencil them and then ink them and then rub out the pencils. So what you're seeing there is actually kind of like a first run at penciling to work it all out. I just take what you have and just take it to the end and then clean it out. What was the other question, Lynn? Because I want to make sure I don't run out of time.
Yeah. Were there any moments that you guys wanted to elongate further, but were aware of a particular page count limit, or were you able to keep it the exact length that you wanted it in the end?
Well, I was always planning that it would be 80 story pages from the beginning. So, and we were talking to Heather earlier on. Like as she said, I knew where it was going to end. There was probably maybe one chapter that kind of weaved as regards. Well, actually, no. There was one stage. Actually, it goes back to what we're talking about Jerry. Jerry had given me a suggestion of expanding a scene, and I really liked it, but it felt it would have stretched the ending out more than it did. And as without getting into specifics, it ends a certain way, and then it kind of paces out as it goes to the ending. And I talked to Gavin and I talked to Heather and a couple of friends about the scene that was suggested, which I really liked. And I thought it would have been, Jerry's point was that it would have been an extra kick in the gut, which I think would have been great. But it would have come at the cost of losing the pace of the ending. And I think the pacing of the story was kind of so important for the whole book to have that in there. And we had the pages. We could have had the, because it's 80 story pages, and like we have some like process stuff at the end. We could have lost the process stuff and had more pages, but I think we would have been stretching it out more than what it needed to be.
We just had one final comment, because I think the two of you losing your pages there in the last 5 seconds. As the stationery addicts are going to go nuts for this. Gary Maloney.
Okay. Well, so do you want us to pick out of those two? Was it the
yeah?
I'm tempted Gary just because of that one, but
the last one.
Yeah, there's too many smart aleck comments in the chat to reward just one. I'll go with the first one because I think
the script adaptation, the script written for you, and the script you wrote.
Yeah, I think that's a really really good question. Do you know who is that?
Yeah, his name is Owen, and I think that was his only question.
Let me see, Owen. Do you have a second name, Owen? Because let me see if I can.
No, hang on, I'm scrolling. How do you contact people on YouTube anyway?
I wouldn't be able to do it on YouTube, but he could DM me because my DMs are open, and I can get his address off him there. Unless he chimes in now in the next 5 minutes, he's losing it. What do you have, Gavin? Do you have the sketch done there? Or?
Yeah. Well, I'm still kind of working on it, but
Who's the gander?
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh man, I want that one. That's class.
Yeah, it's definitely like I think Jerry is my favorite character in the book. You know, he's just like
I want to draw him. Like
he's just. It's great. Like it's just anytime he shows up, like he just steals the scene. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we're saying, like that was that was part of the like the writing. He just became worse because he just looked so horrible.
yeah, scraggly.
And even that there's a line in there, which is about him looking like John Wick's spastic uncle was the phrase, which I knew was like that's the language is so like
it's a bit rough.
It's rough, but like that I wouldn't have had any other character say that because it's too horrible. But he looks like just the kind of horrible scumbag to go there, like that's what I enjoyed about the process we were saying earlier on so much was that like Jerry would never Kino would never say that, and Neve is pretty bad but she wouldn't go that far. Like no wait, hang on,
No, she would.
it was Neve who said it. That was it.
Oh,
Sorry.
I mean, this is it. I mean, like, this is the thing about the kind of unfortunate thing, is that I mean, this is how people speak. You know what I mean? Like
that was
particularly how this is how these characters speak.
Yeah, as regards, it was something we were saying about with Heather. I didn't get into it, but one of the notes she'd given me was about some of the language, and like I said earlier, I'm glad to get the note because I'm not just going to throw stuff in there just because it's funny, or just to get a cheap laugh. I mean, maybe there's a cheap laugh there for sure, but it's that I need to. She pushed back against lines like that, but I felt that just because you don't want to be throwing language like that willy nilly. But as you say, that's exactly what the characters would do because they don't give a rat's ass what anybody thinks. And
exactly.
It feeds the authenticity of the characters more than anything else, which is why, like, I think it works. It would have felt really sanitized otherwise. But I can't even remember why I got onto that. But yeah, if Owen doesn't pop in, then what was the other question? Who asked that one?
That was Matthew Shield, but he might be gone as well now.
Oh, well, that's their fault for not sticking around. I know Matthew would say he'd have loved it as well.
This Aaron lad has had a lot of hilarious comments. If you wanted to give it,
you know what? I will give it to Aaron. Aaron,
you go.
Yeah, Aaron, it's yours.
He deserves it. He's been hilarious the entire time.
Yeah, as long as he's keeping you entertained. Aaron actually is in. Do you know I did a James Bond comic there a couple of years ago? He's written in as well, not him specific. Well, it's him as I wrote him into it, and the artist drew him in, so he's got a cameo in that book. But
great.
In fairness, Aaron's been providing entertainment for you the whole time. Then he
for 3 hours, like
for 3 hours. Okay, all right, Aaron, it's yours. I don't have your address, but sure, DM it to me there, and I'll give it to Gavin, and he can send it on to you. And man, that looks class. Get a scan of that.
I think so too.
Yeah, make sure you get a scan of that.
Yeah, need to.
Don't want to waste it on. I mean, we are wasting it on Aaron, but at least at least he can do something else with it, like.
Oh yeah, it's a promo piece,
this chat is going to just end at past, so we have, say, 5 minutes if anybody else wants to chime in, and we're at 4. We'll cut it off at 25 past, just so.
Okay, I do have someone who's asked, what exercise would you recommend to be a better comic penciler? But I'm sure you have something on that somewhere. So can I link it or?
What was the question? What exercise can you do to become a better penciler?
Yeah.
That's a kind of a tough question. I don't have something to link in. Yeah, it sounds like a trite response, but it's sorry, I'm looking at the comments. tough look Owen Colfer. He's the guy.
Oh, no.
He's the guy who wrote that. It's not actually
sure?
him. It can't be him. No, this guy it's the guy who they made those new Disney films out of his books. I'm positive.
Oh.
I'm positive it's not him.
Okay,
but it sounds trite, but I'd say you're the same, Gavin. Like it's not about being like a penciler. It's just becoming a better artist. I spent years in art college just learning bollocks. And then you come out of it, and some of it applies and some of it doesn't. But it's not about being like a penciler or an inker. It's just keep working at your drawing and get better at being an artist with a capital A. I wish I could give you more specific, but that's kind of, you got to start there.
Yeah, no, that's it too. You just have to keep drawing, and I think think it's best just to be kind of objective about it and just yeah.
Yeah, like this, what you did for Bog Bodies is not the work that you showed me originally, you know. And I saw you do lots of different work, but like I knew that you were great, but you weren't consistent because you've been experimenting so much.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what
yeah.
this, you know, and then what you did with bags, and now this, like, you know, you learned a lot about being an capital A, or in brackets, artist by doing those projects. So an answer to the question would probably be give yourself some kind of project to develop on, make it short, make it something you can actually finish.
Yeah, yeah. Well, really, I mean, yeah. I think you have to be specific about what your goals are. I suppose, you know. I mean, do you like in terms of like being a penciler or whatever? It's like, you know, I don't really know what that means
And
in
it
this
kind
day
of,
and age. You know,
yeah, because so many people pencil digitally, or they finish their work digitally, or they the roles of pencilers and inkers are developing pretty fast. So yeah, I wouldn't put yourself in a bracket of just being a penciler. Maybe you'll end up being that, but don't limit yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, you know, and even having those other skills will inform your penciling as well. Like, but I think it's just like, you know, do you want to make comics, or do you want to draw for the big two, you know, or do you want to write and draw your own thing? You know, do you want to do all of that? You know, and all those things require different skills. You know what I mean? Like, so it's I think it's you know, worth kind of considering.
Yeah,
But,
fair enough, man.
Nice.
Well, look, I think we're going to wrap it up with that. I'm going to say, Bog Bodies is out today. Please buy it. I think it's really good, and that's mainly because of look at all this lovely work by Gavin. And read it like this. Done. As long as you buy it. But no, thanks for everybody for chiming in, and thanks to Aaron for his constant little comments. We clearly appreciate them because he got your drawing out of it. But yeah, thanks for coming in. Thanks to you, Elaine. Cheers for helping me out, because you saw what a disaster I was before we started. Imagine I'd been doing the whole thing on my own. Hold on there.
To go.
Well, none of us do we? But yeah, thanks a million, guys. If you can spread the word, I'm gonna I'll have this upload. I'll share it anyway for everyone else to see. But yeah, thanks for joining us and keeping us going.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody, and thanks so much, Elaine.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks very much. Nice to meet you again, Gav.
You too.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.
Nice. See you. Oh dear God. You do this every day? 3 hours. Yeah, it's off. Or sorry, I stopped streaming. I better go to the end stream. End. Okay, now it's telling me now.